Hello, everyone. You are tuned in to Talk the Talk with Lady Zenias. I'm your host, Miss Londa. Our topic this evening is why do we use the N word or the B word? Our guest joining us this evening is Leah. We have Miss Essie. We have Bia, and we have Miss Linda. 123. Welcome to the show, you ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Miss Londa.
Hello. So something going on. 1 second. As I was saying, our topic this evening is why do we use the N word or the B word? I think that is a word that we need to work on and start changing for, showing ourselves self respect. What is you ladies' take on that?
I agree. I agree that we shouldn't be participating in language that degrades us or taking any part in it. I think it lowers our self esteem and it doesn't allow us to work together as a people.
Exactly.
I like to look at it as there are different tones and we like to see it as a negative today, but there's a lot of undertones with language and its use in today's vernacular compared to what it originally meant. So while I don't like using the word in general, I can understand why other people use it.
Okay. You mean like some people use it as like a word of it. Well, let's talk about the word NIGGA. Some people use it as a term of endearment. Is that what you're saying?
In my opinion, the N word is now like it expresses a lot of words nowadays. You can say the N word and mean a whole bunch of things. Like you say the N word like oh, or you be like Negro or hey Negro. Like there's different interaction, different meanings behind it. But I think it is a very African American specific
Mm-hmm.
word. So I do have a bigger issue on a global scale rather than an American individual scale.
Okay,
I think that a word has its a meaning, and what we try to do is say we're giving it a different meaning, but the word has its meaning. If words have power, the more we speak that word out, the more we give it power to degrade us. So, for instance, um, I believe in the Bible, and it says that we have power and death is in the lack of the tongue. It also tells us we shouldn't take part in anything that degrades or puts down another person. Well, we use that word, whether it's NIGGA or NIGGER, it means the same thing. It means we despise that person. We're despising one another. And we're speaking this out into the atmosphere. And then it's causing this to happen. And then we're saying, why can't we work together as a people? Why can't we do anything? Because we're saying we despise one another. We're speaking this out over and over again, and we're causing this thing to happen. I don't, I always say a duck is a duck, no matter what name you call it by. We can say what we want to say about it, but that word is what it is.
So you wouldn't agree that, well, okay, I'm saying that wrong. So this is my question. A lot of times, okay, you hear the word in rap songs, you hear other people using it, like I said, sometimes as a word of endearment or to be cool. And so when people of other color use it, do you think when they're using it that they're using it because they feel like it's cool and they really don't mean any real ill intent? And does it, I mean, like, even though they're using the one with the A at the end instead of the one with the ER at the end, isn't that the most derogatory word? That the one with the ER at the end?
If you look it up, it's the same thing.
If you do not identify as Black, you have no space to say the N word, no matter what your part of your opinion of the word in and of itself. If you are not Black, you have no space to speak it, just because that is a very specific word that when it originated, it was, as Coach said, as he said, a negative connotation. And personal control of the word is up to the people to control it. So when you let any and everybody say your words, they take control of the word. They have the power over it. They can disrespect you with it. That's not their word. There are lots of derogatory words within every culture that are used within those cultures that we don't use. And that's not part of our vernacular because we don't use it. And if we were to ever say it out loud, our Spanish friend will fight us. Our Asian friend will fight us if we say those words, but they're allowed to say the N-word. And now when we address the N-word, we would rather shut down the whole word and say, oh no, we're all wrong, rather than say, no, this is not your space. All the rest of you, this isn't your space. This is not your conversation. This is not your hand. You have no hand in this deck of cards.
I agree with Lee that no one should be using that word, especially if they're not African American. But I don't think African Americans should say it either. I think when we're talking about equality and saying that people should be treated equal, I'm not going to say a word that I tell you can't say. But like she said, this was something that our people went through. So if anybody's going to say it, it would be them. But I don't think anybody should be saying this word because it's a degrading word. It's a word telling we despise one another. We're speaking these things out over ourselves, and that's something we have to stop ourselves. Because like you said, if I'm calling you something all the time, other people are going to say, well, why can't I say it? They may not understand. Life is changing. When you in schools today, they're not even talking about slavery and different things. People don't understand. So it's a good thing to just take that word out of its existence and just leave it alone and move on. There's so many other words we could say. I don't understand why people are hinging on that word.
I agree with you, and that was the point of why do we use the word? Because then it makes other people feel comfortable, and maybe they don't even understand why we feel the way we do feel about the word.
Right. They don't understand because it's not taught.
We gotta address. That's a whole thing to address, because it's a bunch of cultural appropriation. It's a bunch of, oh well, if you can say it, I can say it. That logic works for. Why does that logic only work for Black culture? That for any other culture, if we did that or we behaved that way, we're immediately shut down and called out for it. If you called somebody out of their name in a Spanish derogatory term, a Jewish derogatory term, an Asian derogatory term, you get called out immediately. But before we have a discussion about what we're saying, no, none of y'all have any rights to have a part in that conversation. The other day, I met somebody who identified as trans Black, and the N-word slipped right out of his mouth. He went, this Negro spitting, and it wasn't Negro that he said, but he said, this Negro spitting, and everybody stopped and said, excuse me, what are you? And he said, I'm trans Black. And we all went, oh, and he got removed from the room immediately because we did not hold space for that. That was not acceptable to us in that space. No, you don't have permission to say that word. No, you cannot say that word. And I do believe that generationally, we'll learn to say better words. We'll find out new words. That's the beauty of English and language, is that it evolves over time. The word, the F word in the gay community used to mean a piece of stick, a bundle of sticks.
Yeah.
That was used to burn witches. And then those witches were also members of the LGBTQ community, because witches were anybody who were outside the cultural norm for American Protestant Christians. But that's a whole nother story. But that word has evolved into something derogatory. And even then in the LGBTQ community, they can say it, and they can say it within their community, but I will never say it, because guess what? It's not my word. And there's no shutdown, even though the word is still derogatory, even though we understand the word and that the word is derogatory, we don't have an issue with not saying the word. So why is it that every other culture has an issue with being unable to say the N-word? Why can't they just let it go? Why can't they leave us alone to deal with this word? So when we deal with the word, we're not dealing with everybody else's input on the conversation, because I feel like whenever we have the issue with the N-word is because of how other people use it, we got to deal with it. Because we got to deal with how Becky and Scott think that they're a Negro, so they think they can say the Negro, that we got to have questions about how we use it ourselves. That's so messed up. And
I don't think it's something that we should be using, because if you're using this in songs and TV shows and everything else, you're putting it into a form for everyone to see. But then I'm telling you, you can't do it. That's just like someone of a different culture saying, there's these opportunities for money and all these things out there, but you can't have it. We can't keep saying that we shouldn't say it, but then the other people can't say it, but we're saying it. We ourselves have to stop saying it. We ourselves have to take away that power of saying that we are no good, or you're this, you're that, and we can't turn around and say, I'm going to say it as endearment. I mean it as an endearing thing. I'm gonna call you a B because of this, or I'm gonna call no. If we don't want other people to address us that way, if we don't want people to do these things to us, we have to stop, because they're looking at us as the example. And if they see us do it, then why can't they do it to us? I'm not saying it's right at all. I don't believe anybody should say that word, especially anybody outside the African American community. But if we don't want others to say it, that's something we should stop saying. Other people, Jewish people, Latino people, they say things too, but it's the same thing. They're degrading themselves. They're setting themselves up for something. How many times have you heard somebody that call a Hispanic something that stuff they don't like? It's because we hear them say it. And we're not hearing them say it, and we're not saying it. But when we hear them say it, we're saying it because it becomes common. It's like our minds have been changed to think it's not that bad. You can say it. It's okay. Everything is okay. That person who said they were transgender Black, okay, people say they're transgender everything now, and now it's acceptable. You'll be wrong for telling somebody they can't be this or they can't be that, even though they're not. We're giving everybody the excuse, or what they're calling a reason to do what they're doing, and we have to agree that it's okay, but it's not okay. If we don't want others to say it, if we don't want others to degrade us, we have to stop degrading ourselves, whether it's in music, whether it's on TV, whether it's in front of one another. We can't do it and then get upset when somebody else is doing it. They're laughing at us. They're looking at us and saying, we don't need to hurt them because they're hurting themselves. We don't need to do anything to them that they're doing to themselves. But we can stop and take a look and stock of who we are and start working together truly. I don't understand why it's so necessary for us to have negative conversation. Why can't we be building each other up? Why can't we be talking about things we need to do? I see it in business meetings all day long with people, and we're always talking about the stuff we need to do. We talk about making money. We ain't talking about $1,000. We talk about millions of dollars. We talk about investing in stock and doing these things, but other people are caught up on this N word. Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? It's a mindset. We need to change our mindset so that we can come up and do what we're supposed to do.
But you got to think about the factor that the N-word is it's not Black people's fault that the N-word ended up in mass media. Let's look at it this way. Let's look at that factor. Hip hop started using the N-word because a white person in charge decided that this is the image of Black people that needs to be in media. This is the version of Black people that we need to promote. So we went from.
But we keep it going. But we're keeping it going.
But it's the cycle. It's we're still lacking ownership of the word, because at the end of the day, we're listening to music, and the music is not controlled. We like to say we control our music, but we don't control our music because we have lots of Black people who are into lots of different genres. And case in point, Beyonce couldn't even get nominated for her daddy. It was a song with the Dixie Chicks, where it was purely a country song, and she could not be nominated because they didn't consider her country because she was Black. Not because the song wasn't country. The song was obviously country, but she's not country because she's Black. And she gets sent into the corner where they only say the N-word, where they only say this word. We have lots of words, we have lots of vernacular, but who's controlling what we get to hear? And even if you say N-word this, N-word that, the reason why we're having this conversation is because we are being forced to hear it. If this was something that was
just like anything else, we fought for the right to sit where we wanted to sit on the bus, the right to go to the schools we wanted to go to, the right to do these things. We can do the same thing. We don't need to take ownership of a word that degrades us. We need to leave that word alone. Why are we trying to take ownership of something that people gave to us that we didn't even want? They called us this name. They degraded us with name, but now we want to take ownership of it. No, I want to leave that word alone because it's no part of who I am. And I'm going to move on and do what I want to do. We can fight as a people for what we want, but we have to stand it together. And we're saying we're not going to use the word, but we still have all these people in music using the word. It's not helping our case. And we have people saying, "Oh, we don't need our freedom. Black people good. Let us just keep working with white people." That didn't help our case. We had to get together and say we're going to do what we want to do. We're not going to sit in the back of the bus, so we're going to boycott the bus. We have to get together and do something that's going to make a change in society. But if we keep saying we have to live off of what they give us, we will always be living off of what they give us. We have to leave that alone and do what we want to do for us, period.
I
And I
completely
guess
agree with you.
that's the point that I was trying to make, is that why do we use the word if we feel so uh affected by it? If we feel disrespected by it, why do we use it? But then we're mad because somebody else calls us that word.
Right.
That's the whole point, is we
Am I in on this picture?
are the
Can
same.
anybody hear me?
Wait a minute, Carl. I'm still talking. We need
I
to
just don't know
stop.
if you hear me.
Yes,
Yeah.
we need
Okay.
to stop using the word, just like the word the B word. We don't
Mm-hmm.
we get around as females and we might call each other, that word, but then we feel some type of way when a man calls us that. I mean, I guess the respect that you want is the respect that you have to show yourself, that you want from other
That's
people,
right.
is the whole point.
It's
I
about
just
changing
don't
our
like
That,
mindset to think higher.
I just don't like the idea of tone policing. I think that's the core of my issue. I don't think that a person's vernacular describes their intelligence. Whether or not they use the N word or the B word does not mean they don't have anything of value to bring to the table or to the conversation. And to stop a whole conversation because they said the N word or because they said the B word is um, non-conducive to growth, to individual growth, if we're judging someone because they said the N word or the B word. Again, this is only towards Black people. This is only a conversation about Black people when I'm talking about that subject. If again, it's because if you are not Black, you have no space to say the N word. But I do not believe that we should tone police our own when we are working on growing as a people. We should be worried about bigger things than whether or not he said the N word in the middle of the conversation to enunciate what he was feeling. That's what I feel.
I think that we have to set a standard for ourselves as a people. I don't think that, like you said, we should be the tone police. When somebody says something, we can't have a conversation. We should have the conversation, but there should be somebody after that conversation who pulls that person to the side and say, we can communicate better than this. We are better than this. We don't have to use those words. It was a time in my life, because I'm 45 now. It was a time in my life when I was younger. I didn't know any better. And I would say and do things until somebody pulled me to the side and taught me better. Now I'm an African American woman with her own home, her own car, her own 4 businesses, and working for myself. I don't work for anybody. I haven't worked for anybody since 2015. But somebody had to pull me to the side and tell me what I was doing wrong so I could be a better person. Now I have the opportunity to help others be better people. But we can have a conversation and let somebody say what they're going to say and not interrupt them, not stop them, not judge them because they're using that word. Because I did things before I knew better. But once you know better, you do better. So after that, we need to pull our people to the side and say, look, we can have this conversation without this. We can talk and we can be whatever we want to be without saying these things that hurt us. Those are things we should be doing. But we shouldn't judge our own because they're saying it, because that has nothing to do with their intelligence, like we said.
And that's complete. That's my whole, that's literally what I feel. I completely agree with you, Essie. Like, I completely agree
I
that
was
like we can learn.
that it's probably something. I was just saying that if we feel some type of way about other people using the word, and we feel some type of way if they call us that, why should we ourselves use the word and call each other that? I'm not judging anybody, to each his own.
Yeah.
Again, I think those are two different conversations. It's tone policing versus cultural appropriation.
I'm not gonna tongue police anybody. I mean, I'm not gonna be like, hey, don't use that word. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think we should stop using the word if we don't want other people to use it. That's just me. It's just like I'm not gonna cuss or say things around my children that I don't want them to say, because I can't be a hypocrite. I can't tell my children that they can't say or do something, but they see mommy doing it all day long. That's just wrong, because in their minds they're gonna grow up and say, but they did this, they said this. If I'm gonna do something right, I need to raise in the right way. I need to be the example that I want them to be. So I don't do the things that I don't want them to do. So we are going to tell people that they should use the word. We should not use it either, because I don't feel it's important for us to degrade one another, for us to be happy. We don't have to degrade one another to have a conversation. We can say whatever. It's so many millions of words out there. We can use any word we want, but we don't have to use the word that the white man a long time ago or any other race used a long time ago to bring us down. We don't need to use it.
I think it's a TPO kind of situation of time, place, and occasion. I don't think the N-word should be in our media anymore. I can agree with that completely. I don't think that we need to be singing it anymore. If you plan on this being a mass, a song for the masses, a rap for the masses, then you don't need to say the N-word because you are giving power to people that don't have a space to say it. Like, you know how many Kanye fans you sit there in the middle of a Kanye concert watching Becky's trying to say the N-word and you just got to look at her like, so we can fight.
Hello?
Yes, Mr.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
You have
All right, I was pushing buttons. I couldn't get y'all because I was listening to y'all. This is Uncle C.
Okay, is there something that you would like to add?
Yeah. I mean, you know what? These words is not gonna go away. I don't care how we figure it out or try to not say them. They gonna be said. You know what? It's the same way as all the cuss words that's in the, ain't even in the Bible, but they've been out there. And we talk about all those cuss words when you hit your toe. You know, those words is just gonna come out. But I mean, if we talking about the word nigga, or I'm sorry, shouldn't say that, the N word, it's been propaganda for us for lifetime. We may use them in a different way than versus if somebody else in an opposite color of us that uses the word. Even hey, I'm not for all these rappers who use the word N word and all that jive, and they uh and they rap songs and things like that. That's not cool. But hey, I have to listen to it. But see, the devil owns the airwaves, and he'll put everything out there for you to litigate or put things out there that people don't want to hear or people hear, and then they use it. And white people want to use it too.
And
but
no, they cannot.
No, they cannot. No, they cannot. But hey, if I called you an N-word, then I'm good, because you black and black. But we have to come to a conclusion of how we're using these words. Yeah, we're trying to take it out of our kids' mouths, but it's gonna never ever leave their mouths.
They said that about slavery at one point. They said slavery was never going to end. Anything can end if we put our mind to it. You're saying it's okay for me to call you the N-word, but I'm degrading you when I say that. Why should I call you that? Why should I speak that out? I believe in the Bible. The Bible tells me don't have any corrupt words coming out my mouth. Don't have this type of conversation. And my word, life powers in the tongue. Why would I say that about my own and then say we can't get together and do nothing? Well, every time I say the N-word, I'm telling you I despise you. I'm speaking that out.
Well, when black people come together, that's just what comes out.
That's not what comes out when I'm with my black people.
Well, truthfully enough, it's gonna come out, no matter where you at, as black people. It's gonna come out. I don't care how Christianized you are, but it's gonna come out. You could be so much Christianized, but I'm telling you, when you piss a Christian off, I'm telling you, they're gonna say that N-word.
Everybody's not like that, sir.
Well, I'm gonna tell
not
you
like
the
that.
truth.
I did not grow up saying that word. My dad is from Africa, and we did not grow up saying that word.
So
everybody,
but now actually you're talking from a different point of view, because now you're speaking from and I'm coming from the same point of view as a child of an immigrant. We don't have the ADOS experience. We are not African descendants of slavery. We are people who.
Well, my mom is. See, that's the thing. My mom, her side of the family is from America, but my dad is from Ghana. So I grew up with a parent who grew up here, and I grew up with a parent who grew up in another country. So my mom could have easily been using that word and doing whatever, but we didn't. My parents owned their own businesses. They taught us to empower ourselves. They taught us these things. So we don't have to say that something has to be around forever because slavery ended. Things end. My mom always taught me there's nothing permanent but change. So that means things can change if we set our minds to it.
And that's
what I want to say about our African people that come to America. They treat black people totally freaking different. You know, because they was taught that way by the white man. How black people who done raised this country, who done built this country, and they tell them how bad black people really is. Those who done fought for them to come to America freely. You know what I'm saying? Because my ancestors came here unwillingly. But now we're talking about black African people who come to America. I don't give what where they came from in Africa, but when they come to America, the white people taught them to, hey, don't mess with these black people in America. There's a difference. And
But
we
my
love
dad didn't
all
do
of the
that. He
black
hangs with
people.
a lot of black
Hold on, let
people.
me say this.
So
Hold on, let me say this. We love our black people all over the world. But I'm saying they have taught them to not love us or don't mess with them, don't deal with them. But if it wasn't for the black power that happened in America, they wouldn't be able to be over here legally. And then we can't even get together with each other because we're still structured because of what white people is telling one nation under God, individual, on the sidelines, all coming from Africa. Now, how come we can't get together as black African people and black American people to come together and to make it one strong thing? That's, you know what I'm trying to say. We can't because they don't want to deal with black people in America, not black
I think it has more
Africans.
to do with a mindset. I think it has more to
But
do with
that's
a
what I'm trying
mindset,
to
us
say.
changing our
It's the
mindset and quit
mindset.
saying the white man and just do what we need to do. Because I've
Well,
never
that's
said in
what I'm
my
trying
life
to
the
say.
white man is not going to let me do anything. I've had teachers who told me you're not like these other black children because they found out my dad was from Africa. But I told them I'm very much like every black person on the face of this earth. It was what my parents taught me. My parents didn't teach me that because my dad's from Africa, I'm better than any African here. They taught me that we were all African, period. So it doesn't have
Well,
to do, we don't have to rely on what the white man is saying. We can do what we know is true and live off of that.
So
but
let's work on
sweetheart,
developing that
we're
part,
not.
that
We're,
narrative. How
I
about
want to
how
say,
can we work on developing that narrative that we as
well,
Black people, no matter what part of the diaspora that you originate from, that we are all people and we are all just as smart and just as educated and just as um, able to become great, no matter where you're coming from, because
well,
Carl's defense, I have heard that opinion from my family members who are immigrants, and from I turned, it wasn't until I was 25 that I really had friends that I could say are from America. I've always had some sort of immigrant friend. I've always had a friend who was from another country or whose parents were from another country or was a child of a person from another country. So I was not exposed to my American friends because I didn't know who they were. They didn't stand out to me. And then when we started having those conversations, I was like, yo, where's everybody from? And then they were like, Georgia. And I was like, that, you okay? Are you safe? Or like, they're like, no, I'm fine, but I'm from Georgia. Everything's cool. Like we're working fine. And like I had to learn about how they interact and how American culture developed and how they interact with each other. And that's when I learned to respect each and every person's cultural vernaculars and respect and I refuse to tone police anyone for that reason. It's the same reason why I also think that we need to know when we need to say certain words. When you're in a circle of all Black people, whatever language comes out your mouth is whatever language comes out your mouth around the people that you are safe for. But when you are aware that other people are listening, those words need to stop being said, because one, you are alienating and othering other cultures, and two, you are alienating and othering yourself.
I don't
well,
feel
I
I need to live
understand.
a double life. I want to be me at all times. So I don't care where I am or who I'm with. I want to be me. So if I'm not going to say it around my family and friends, then I'm not going to say it around anybody else. And if I can't say it around other cultures, then I'm not going to say it around my family. I don't feel that I need to degrade my family by using the N word or the B word because people say that's just our culture. That's not my culture. That's not a lot of people's culture. That's not my children's culture.
And no, but that's perfectly respectable. That's not your culture. And you can accept that it's not your culture. But we have to also accept that that might be Carl's culture. And we have to accept that part of his culture is that he says the N-word amongst him and his friends. The question is, these conversations are not for everybody. And we have to respect that if a Spanish person is speaking to Spanish people, they speak in Spanish. We didn't get that opportunity. We don't have our own language. You know what we have is the African American vernacular. And you know what's happening with that? It's cool.
Yeah.
And every little hick in town want to be able to sing it. And we got Macklemore and we got Joe Budden saying the N-word anytime he can because he thinks he's cool just because he's
Right.
broke, that he thinks that's
Yeah.
the equivalent of being African American, because America has this false equivalency that black equals poor. So when a white person is poor, they think that they can now act black. And
But
that's
white people who are not poor think they can act black.
because
White people who are not poor think they can act black. But what is, first of all, my thing is, we saying acting black, we're putting ourselves in this category of like we gotta be poor, we gotta talk a certain way. We're just like every other people. We talk and say things just like every other people. We
yeah.
don't all have to be thrown into one pot and say we all have to act this way, because it's not true.
And
So
but
we don't need to
I
give the
agree with
narrative
you.
of that in our conversations, in our TV shows, in our music. We don't have to give that narrative. It's up to us to stop that, because they're going to keep trying to perpetuate that, but we have to be the ones to stop it.
I
Yeah.
totally agree with you.
Can I jump in? I'm a comedian, so I talk about everybody's race. I don't care where you come from or how it is. But I know black people. I know my black people, but I know African people too that don't like black people because of what they've been taught about
But it's
black
black
people.
people who don't like black people, and that ain't
That is true.
African.
That is definitely true because it's
I
a lot
mean,
of black
that's every
people.
race.
So
It's
we
a
got
lot
to
of black
change the
people.
narrative.
It's a lot of black people that I don't like. But I guess you want to say it like this. Now, if you want to bring the N word in it, see, now you got the difference between being a N and black people. You know, the N people is the one who F it up for the black people. You know, we're trying to be blackish, but then yet the N people is the one who making shit worse. But that's just me. That's just me. Now, as a comedian, I talk about all people. It don't matter what color, race, color, creed you are. I'm just gonna be me. But I love my black people. I love all people. But it's the bull jive that we got to deal with when you're dealing with individuals, when you come across people who is just being assholes. Can I say assholes on here?
No.
No?
I mean,
Okay,
because
let me
I'm not
rewind.
trying to be funny, but I'm sure you guys have run into a black person that you did not want to hear the N word come out their mouth
Yes.
because they didn't care for black people or anything. But you come across white people who are more down with the African culture than any black person. So
And they still
it's
can't
like
say it.
they still can't say it. But my thing is, we can't pick and choose. And we don't want people to say it. Let us just stop. Let us take that word, because we don't need to own it. We don't need to have nothing to do with that word. That was the word that was put on us.
So
That
let
was
me
the word that
ask
we
you
were
a
called to
question.
degrade us and keep us down. Why do we need to keep it? Why do we need to hold on to something that they put on us to keep us down?
Exactly. That's the whole point here. We don't need to take ownership of something that we feel offended by. They put that on us, so why do we
Right.
feel like we need to own it when they put it on us? They were using it as a demeaning way. I
That's
want to
right.
jump in and read a couple of comments. So I have a comment from Scrap Dilla. He said the okay, the man, I'm gonna say that, is the biggest reason for all of our problems. And then I have another
Mm-hmm.
comment from Stacy. The N word is just as deeply rooted in our black culture as well as slavery. It's too deeply rooted to me to stop saying that word. The same as the B word. That word has probably been around as long as the N word, but that word comes from a hateful place.
And you know what? And again, that's a conversation of community and who you can say it around. The B word, I call my friend the B word all the time, but that's because we're okay with that conversation with each other. And I say the B word with the SH. I'll say dish. And like and that's completely full in tone and conversation. I have an issue when men say females. I hate that. I hate that more than if he said the B word, because I feel that that's animalizing me. And I'd rather you call me a B, because I could give you a reason to call me a B, than you call me a female, because you will not treat me like an animal. You will not name me as an animal.
But when you call yourselves a B, that's what that means. So I don't understand, why do you feel like you guys have to entertain one another by saying that?
Yeah, I don't either, because I mean, I think as a man, okay, so if I walked in on my ex-wife and she had her friends
That's
and they
not
was
so
drinking
long.
wine. They were drinking wine and everything. I came home and I'm like, oh shit, I gotta deal with these bitches. Now I said that word, and even though I didn't want to say it like that, but I know they finna start acting like bees.
That's
And
not
I'm like,
nice.
okay,
That's not
well,
cool.
it's
That's
not
not the
nice.
right
It's not
tone.
nice. But
That's
when I
not, and
walked up
that's
on
the
it,
issue.
but
That
hold on,
let's unpack
sis.
that. I want to unpack that, because let's look at what you just said. You said they're gonna start acting like bees. So when girls talk to each other, we talk to, and we're kiki ha ha, whatever conversation within that community is a conversation within that community. When you have decided that they're going to act like this, you have put a tone and you have put a definition on the B word, and you have
Yeah,
put that negative tone on the B word.
yeah, you know
But
why?
Lee,
Because I know
you
her
did too,
friends.
because you
I
spoke it
know her
out and called it
friends.
such. You kept
No,
calling it so. When you say something, I believe bring you speak into your atmosphere and make it happen, because that's all biblical. So if you're saying the B word, you calling each other B words, you're attracting that. So when somebody else says it to you, you upset. But he is attracting what he's been hearing. He's saying what he hears all the time. They calling each other that, so they're acting like that. So now he's saying it, but we're mad at him. We shouldn't call ourselves that if we don't want other people to call us that.
That's I find that silly, just because that rule does not seem to apply for any other culture. That
rule does apply to other cultures. It does too apply. Yes, it does. It applies to all cultures. That rule applies to every culture. Every culture has the same conversation we're having today.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that doesn't apply to Mexicans, Asians, or white women. We as women need to respect ourselves and each other.
That's right.
We should not be sitting around calling that word. This is not only directed towards our Black community. I wanted to read a comment that's directed to, I do believe you, Mr. C. She, Nikki wants to know, what's acting like a bee?
I think you, sir.
You need to unmute your mic, Carl.
He's on mute still. And he's real spitting. He's spitting. His heart is in it, but like he can't hear a word.
He's on mute.
Sir, you're still muted. I think he's trying to unmute now. Yolanda, what's the YouTube name again?
Can y'all hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. No, when I told my wife that, my ex-wife that.
No, listen, did you hear the question, Carl?
No, I didn't. I didn't hear the
comment
question.
Was directed towards you. She wants to know, what is acting like a bee?
What is acting like a bee? It's when you're not a bee, but you're trying to be a bee. And I don't need all the programs that you giving me. Let me just do what I'm supposed to do. So you acting and you just going like, you like you're on your third world. It's acting. You're acting. You're not being one, but you acting like one.
But
and I'm like, why are you acting like
this? Like, I'm not understanding the definition of what a bee is to act like one.
All right, well,
yeah,
because I don't know what a I'll just say it. You're acting.
And ladies were
you're acting out. You just acting out. You just snapping
at it. Is acting out.
Carl,
yeah,
so women can't express ourselves.
Because
I just said, hey, look,
listen, Carl,
I'm not going. I can't.
So what you said was, you walked in a room of women that were sitting around drinking wine, and the first thing came to your mind was they were acting like the B word. I mean, how? Because they're sitting around kicking it and having a good time. I guess I'm lost as to what you mean by that.
He's on mute again.
sir. Sir, you're still muted.
And the worst part is he's feeling every moment of his words, but we can't
Yes.
hear a damn thing. He is yelling. He is feeling
Carol,
every
you need
moment.
to
We can't hear
unmute again.
nothing. We can't hear anything.
Miss Yolanda, what is the YouTube channel called again?
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
Say it again.
they always on me, you know, they girlfriends, you know, they are girlfriends. They got smart remarks all the time. What you doing? What you going? You know, they just got, and so they just acting. They just acting. You know, that's her girl. You treating her right. You doing what you're supposed to do. Blah blah blah. It's just what women do. But I'm like, okay, y'all calling each other hoes and bitches all the time. Hey ho, hey bitch, yeah bitch. And I just walked in and go, hey, how y'all bitches doing? And they got mad.
Well, yeah, because that's disrespectful, and you're using.
Well, you know,
And all women don't do that. All women don't do that.
To me, at that particular time, I'm like, well, let me see what they gonna say if I said this.
But that's
So
the same energy as a white person saying the N-word.
when I said it, how y'all bitches doing? They got mad. Reason why I said it because I hear them call themselves bitches and hoes so fucking much. I'm like, well, let me just see how they feel about it.
Carl,
Hey,
you need to
bitches, how
watch
y'all
the
doing?
swearing.
So now it's a different perspective. Oh, I just know he didn't call us some bitches. Well, that's what
that
calling.
you already
But the
admitted
same
that
thing
you
applies to the N word. I don't understand why everything is given. We want to give ourselves excuses to say when we can say a certain word and when we can't. Those rules should apply across the board. We can't say, okay, so I said they can't say it. No, that's wrong. That's just too. Oh my goodness, it makes it difficult for the world to be at peace because I don't know what your rules are.
No,
I mean,
but what is wrong with learning the people's rules? What is wrong with understanding that other people live by different rules than you and that that certain rules are not for you? Like,
I don't have a
if
problem
you
with
are
rules. I have a problem
just
with us
like
degrading one another.
But just like a white person can't say the N-word, a man can't say the B-word simply because he's not a part of the community to say that. And honestly, if I want to have a discussion about it, I would have a discussion about things that men say about each other. Because I don't like the word simp, but that's in the vernacular now. That's a new thing. Simp.
You're saying that your group says the B word, but my group doesn't. So I offend you when I ask you not to, but you're offending me when you do it. So which one is right?
So I'm not, but the thing is that I wouldn't be offended if you asked me not to do it. I would just not do it around you. If I was with my girls, I would say it.
But you just said about policing.
Again, because if I'm in my circle, I am obeying the rules of my circle. If I come into your circle, I will obey the rules of your circle. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. If I'm in your circle, I obey whatever rules that are in your house. You have not heard me say the N-word or the B-word in this conversation because at the start of the conversation, me and Miss Londa talked about that's not what we're doing and that's not how we're acting. That's the tone of the room. That's the rules of the room. I'm acting as per the rules of the room. I'm acting like I'm in the room.
My life shouldn't change. My life shouldn't change with every place I go. I should have a standard. I should have a standard and say I don't need to be negative to everybody to be happy. Oh my goodness.
And I think that everybody is different and has the right to be as different as they want to be in whatever tone they want to be, as long as they are respectful to the people around them. So if they are within their own safe space, they can speak however they want in their safe space. If they are not in their safe space, they need to act according to the space that they are in.
But you got to understand what you speak out and speak in life and depth into your life. What you speak out and speak into your life.
Ladies, I'm going to jump in for a second. Carl, I need you to respect the rules. I need you to stop over talking people. And I explained to you why I did not want you to use the actual B word or any other swear word. I need you to respect the reason why I muted your mic.
Oh, me?
Yes, because you.
I'm sorry.
Prior before.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't want to be muted.
we're gonna
But I
let
was just trying to say as a man,
they were still
I was
talking.
just
We're
trying
gonna
to say
let
as a
them
man, if
carry
we're
on.
using those words, I was just trying to say if we're using those words as ladies use those words against each other. And then when a man uses those words, oh, it's a different standard.
Yes,
No,
because you're
you should
not a
not use
woman.
those
You
words.
don't have a vagina. You don't have a space in that
But
conversation.
it doesn't matter whether he has a vagina or not. No one should use that. We shouldn't feel we empower each other by being negative to one another. We shouldn't have to entertain one another or say we good friends because I call you the B word and I can call you that, but nobody else can. We don't have to empower ourselves negatively. We can empower ourselves in a positive way, but we take on this negative, and believe it or not, that negative mindset comes all the way back to slavery. It goes all back to slavery when they called us that, and for us to get along, our mindsets change to say, let's just call ourselves, we gonna call ourselves, we call it, they're gonna hear us saying it's gonna make them happy. That goes all the way back to slavery. We have to understand the history of where this stuff started. It didn't just start because it was a new fad. This has been underlying since they kidnapped us and brought us to America. And whether you were born here as an African American or not, when you take part in that, you're taking part in the fact that they have changed your mindset to believe it's okay to degrade one another. And they're sitting back laughing at you because they don't have to do nothing that you're doing to yourself. We can speak words of empowerment into our lives and empower ourselves.
I personally feel that linguistically, that is a cultural, that is something that is cultural within whatever group that you're in. I see if we look at other cultures, not Black cultures, the Irish and the English, they curse every day, every second of the sun. See you next Tuesday is a very openly used word, and I would never use it for my conversation. That's not something I would never say, but I've seen my white friends happily say it to each other and call each other that, and I'm like, y'all are wild. But you know what? They say it, and they curse every single day, and every part of their conversation is cursing each other out, and that's how they work with each other. But guess
But
what?
we
When
should be
they're in
trying to be
public, they
like
don't do that.
them.
But guess what? When they're in public, they don't do that. But when they're in private, they do. They have an inside voice and an outside voice. I'm not policing anybody for their inside voice, but I do appreciate addressing the outside voice.
I don't know why we keep trying to be like other people. I just don't get that. Why we keep trying to say
I'm
we
not
got to
trying
be
to
like
be
other
like
people.
anyone, but we're sitting here and we're going back and forth in that circular direction. You don't want to be like other people, but you also want to be treated like everyone else. You still have to understand that everybody has their own rules. Everybody has their own.
Well, what rules do Black people have? What rules do Black people have? We got the word. We call ourselves Black and Black and all that. You know, we got our word. But y'all women, we talking about the word be and the ends, and yeah, we got our own words. Yeah, we got our own words. We use them in our own fashion. But I can't see if a man calls you out your name, oh, you want to criticize him for doing that.
But
But
you
then
got to
yeah,
use
y'all
that
call
same
each
logic
other,
with
but y'all
white
calling each
people.
other out your name. So
We
I'm
need to be
speaking across the board. If I can say that if you are an outsider to this culture, you can't say this word, then I believe that if you are outside of this gender, then you can't say this word. If every group has their culture and has their language, and I can respect the fact that I don't speak their language, and I can respect the fact that there are certain words that they can use that I can't use, I can accept that. I can speak Japanese. I'll speak Japanese to my Japanese friends. But guess what? There's still some curse words that I'm not saying because I ain't stupid. And I don't want to be cursed out in a string of words that I won't be able to keep up with. I'm obeying the rules of the culture that I'm engaging with.
well, listen, my sister.
I
I'm
just think
sure
we
when
shouldn't
you
be
go get your
hypocrites.
nails done, I'm sure when you go get your nails done, and those Chinese people or Oriental people is in that
Please
place,
don't call them
I'm sure
Oriental.
they
That is
talking
a
in their
vague kind of
language.
person.
I'm sure they talking in their language, and I'm sure they cussing your ass out in their language. You
And
just can't
I choose to
understand it.
believe the best of
You
everyone.
just can't understand it that your toes is fucking ugly. And they ain't telling you that, but they ain't telling you that in your language.
I personally I like to believe the best in everyone, so I don't assume that everyone is talking to me. But I've also learned enough in both Japanese and Spanish to know when somebody's talking to me and talking about me. But that being said, I also am well aware that might be why I do my own nails, because I don't want to have that conversation with anybody else. I don't want to have that fight. So I'm gonna avoid that fight.
But I'm not gonna do something I don't want my children to do. I don't want nobody calling my daughter a B and she calling nobody else a B.
That is
And we shouldn't
perfectly
promote that as if
acceptable.
it's okay.
But that's perfectly acceptable. And I think you're completely right to teach your kids the way you want your kids to be treated. And it's perfectly okay for you to tell your kids that that saying the N-word is not okay. And I think it's perfectly okay to teach your kids to be better than you. I will never curse around my mother. I am 32 years old. I still will never curse around my mother because I don't care how old she is. I still in my head think my ass is gonna get beat. I accept that.
That's a good thing.
But that is something that
everybody else
I
gonna
had
do.
to learn, and that's something that was part of my culture and community, and that's how we are today. I won't say that in that tone. I won't speak in any certain tone around family or whatever, because your tone with your family is your tone different from your work tone is different from your friend tone. Everybody speaks differently in whatever circle they are. And I want to respect everybody for speaking in their circles. I do agree that if we talk about mass media and as a whole and in the dialogue that crosses cultures, no, we do not need to say the N-word anymore. No, we do not need to have rappers who mumble every word except the N-word. Negro. Like, no, that's not necessary. That's not energy. That's not cool.
But you do understand that these things don't stop until we stop. We can say we can't use it in the media. We can say we can't use it on TV. But as long as we're saying it, it's going to keep being used in the media. It's going to keep being used on TV. We have to be what we want life to be. We can't be hypocritical. We can't do that. That's not how life works. Life doesn't change because in the background we change. I mean, you have to think about what you're saying and what you're doing because it comes out eventually. Like the gentleman was saying, Uncle Carl, who you really are is going to come out when it's time. When you get upset, who you really are is going to come out. So it doesn't matter if you try to be one way this way and one way another. You need to be who you are at all times. And that means changing our mindsets to be who we really should be at all times. I understand that there are different tones and we have different relationships. And those different relationships, we do certain things. But that doesn't change who I am. The person I am, I'm not going to cuss in front of my mom. I'm not going to cuss in front of my children. I'm not going to cuss in front of my friends. And I don't want people cussing in front of me. And if a whole generation have to die off for people to understand that we have to stop being disrespectful to one another as a people so that we can rise up, that's just what's going to have to happen. Because we can't have people just keep doing things and saying we don't want this life, but we're speaking it out. We're making it happen with our words.
I agree with you. So how do we change the narrative then? Because that's the conversation and that's what we're addressing. How can we change a narrative? Because right now we use the N-word and the B-word because we really don't use anything else. And we have other options. We use bro, we use cuz, what up, friend, what up. We say a lot of different words, but they never have the same veracity and like the same oomph as using the N-word and the B-word. So what can we do to change that? What can we do to make the N-word uncool?
So are you saying if we were to call each other sis, if we were to respond to each other as ladies or sis, that it doesn't have the same response as if we call each other the B-word?
It's a mindset.
I agree. That's the statement. It's a mindset. I like using the word sis. I use sis very often, but that became a pronouns conversation with some of my friends. Or I use the word dude. I'm a dude, you're a dude, he's a dude, we're all dudes. But that became a pronoun conversation again. So like I don't know when people use the word the B word, like we can look at the history of different curse words. The history of the word the word dick was because of Richard Nixon. We used to call people used to be called Richard, and that you could have easily used and with the nickname of Dick, but because of Richard Nixon, nobody is named that anymore. If you name your kid Richard, they're now rich. Nobody calls themselves by the nickname Dick anymore because of Richard Nixon. That was a cultural change thanks to someone's behavior. And that was a cultural change in a curse word. A curse word completely changed thanks to an individual's behavior. And so we got to look at how can we build language in order to change what we're using every day. We have the right and we have the education and we have the creativity to rebuild conversation. The word bedroom was invented by Shakespeare. That was not the,
Yeah.
it was Chambers before that, but he decided to say the word bedroom because it fit his writing style better. And guess what? Now what we call the rooms, the master bedroom.
Okay,
But
so
you
can
said,
I
how do
say
we
something?
change this? How do we change this?
So
The way that we change this
Can I?
is not do it in secret for our children to hear us say it in secret, and then they keep
Right,
saying it in secret.
so
The way
right.
we change
Can I?
it is not to
Am I
say it.
online? Am I online?
Yes,
Can
sir. Yes,
anybody
you
hear
are,
me?
sir.
All right, this is what I want to say. Let me just say this. Let's go back and she talks about the slavery time. Let's talk about, I'm going to say the word. I don't really want to say it. Mother F you, motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? That was back in the time where it says slaves, kids, sons was taught by the slave owner to F their mother, to make babies. They made them make babies with their mamas. That's where Mother Effa came from. So it's a lot of different things that we're talking about that we can get really deep into what white man put in front of us.
and and
That's
the,
where
and
it
the
came
words that a
from.
white man put in front of us versus the words definition today, because obviously we don't use mother effort
Oh, we say it a
to
lot.
mean
We'll say it
things
a
like
lot now. We'll say Mother F you a lot.
yes.
Now, but I'm
But in
just
order,
trying to
but
say where the word came from. It came from slavery and it came from slave masters making their sons F their mothers, to
and
make
if we
babies,
want to change the narrative, we
you
have to
know,
change the narrative by stopping. We can't change the narrative by we keep saying it. Like he
exactly.
said, Uncle Carl said that he can't say the word, but women are saying it every day. And we don't want them to say it. We have to stop. We can't, it can't be okay for us to degrade one
Okay,
another
now.
and somebody else comes in and then we want to really get okay. It can't be okay for us to not want to call each other, hear other people call us the N-word, but we're saying it every day. We can't do that. We have to be the example that we want people to be for us. Because you might say, I'm not going to teach my child X, Y, and Z, but they're going to hear you say it in your time with your friends or when you're in another thing, and then they're going to start saying it, and it never stops. We have to be what we want life to be. We can't say and do those things that we don't want done and expect other people just to stop. We have to stop. It starts with us.
I
Everything starts with you.
Yes, basically that's the whole point here is that we need to start with ourselves and change our vocabulary and start respecting ourselves more if
Yes.
we want other people to respect us.
so we have to
Yes.
develop our own. I The thing about language and the thing about the evolution of language is that cold turkey never works. So while I agree with everybody, and I agree with you, especially Essie, that we do need to like stop using it and stop making it as a part of our major vernacular, we have to also understand that cold turkey will not work because cold turkey will make it more fun to say. It's a curse word. Curse words are curse words because you're not
That
supposed
is
to say it.
true.
And the
That is
moment you
very
say
true.
that you should not say it, guess what? They're going to do it even more to prove a point that they are either harder, cooler, or more badass than you. The easiest way is to
Now, you
solve.
know, the thing about it is I didn't teach my children not to curse and they didn't curse. When I didn't curse around my children, but when they went outside with their friends, I know they cursed it before. They had an understanding. So I taught them self-respect. When you teach somebody self-respect, then things begin to work on their own. They're going to start to stop. My children stopped doing things on their own once they learned self-respect. I didn't have to tell them to stop cussing. I didn't have to tell them to stop being a follower. I didn't have to tell any of that. I taught them self-respect. I changed their mindset. Nobody ever quits anything, Coach Choki. I'm a life coach. I've been coaching for years. That never happens. But when I teach a person to love themselves, the things that they even thought they would never stop doing, they stop doing. We have to love ourselves as a people, and we have to love ourselves as individuals if we want to see any change for our people in society.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I fully agree. We gotta, and that's the core of it all. We gotta teach personal self respect, so that what whether or not you say it has nothing to do with your value as an individual, and B, that you don't have to say it to be valued as an individual in any culture. So no,
I
if you
agree.
are
I
in
agree.
a Black culture, you do not have to say the N-word in every other sentence in order to be valued in that conversation. If you are amongst women, you don't have to say the B word in order to be valued into the conversation. You don't have to say to use every vernacular on the sun as soon as you, because you know that we all know how much that feels icky when other people do it. And so we just got to look at ourselves to be like, if it makes you feel icky when other people do it, just don't do it for yourself. I have a rule of, I ask people what their pronouns are. I ask what their rules are. What are you okay with? My pronouns are she, her, or your majesty. Like, that's just how I interact with people to be positive and to keep energy going. But I won't be like, well, I'm not, because it also shuts down conversations when you tone. I've seen the situations where the issue with telling people not to say the N-word, it feels, and I'm just saying how it felt in the moment, and it wasn't me that felt. This was how the conversation was when I observed the conversation. Somebody was using the N-word liberally as part of his dialogue, like, ha ha ha, you something my N-word, and this person like flipped the shit, like, do not call me the N-word, this and the third, and it became a very defensive conversation. Because
I think that's an
All right.
immature mindset to think you have to stop somebody from
Right.
speaking. The way they speak is the way they
Yeah.
speak. The best thing to do,
You're
like
right.
I said,
That's true.
is to mentor or go to them after the conversation when nobody is around and say, "I agree with your point. I think you make some really good, valid points, but I think the way you presented it, the way you gave it, could have turned some people off. It's better if
Yeah.
we have
Well,
a real conversation with people, because that's how we grow. We don't have a conversation. People don't grow when you tell them to stop. People don't grow when you embarrass them. People don't grow that way. People grow when you
right.
go to them real and say, "I love you like I love myself." But we
Right.
got to do better.
Hey, listen, I'm Uncle Carl. And you know what? I've been around for 54 years. And I've been using this word in and out all the time when it's time to use it. You know, that nigga owed me $20. I shouldn't
Sir,
say that. I'm just talking about the N word,
but
but I'm
like,
just
here's
talking
the
about the N
thing,
word. But
it's
I'm
not
just
funny
saying
anymore.
that
Like that,
word,
I think the
that
core of that
word.
statement is, it's not funny anymore. Like, we
Well,
say
it,
it to
it's
make a
it's
joke. We say things because we think it's funny. It's not funny, and like, we're gonna continue
to
and like,
you,
stop joke.
to
And
me as a comedian.
that's the statement you saying to you.
Right,
But
to me.
but
Let me finish. Can I finish?
okay,
Can I finish? To me as a comedian that's been around for 54 years, yes, sometimes it's not good to use the word, but when it's, hey, I didn't invent the word, but I'm telling you, these words and cuss words and all these words was invented by God, whoever he put it in their hands to use. You don't just hit the chair and go, oh my God, yes, you might have, but sometimes say, somebody gonna say a cuss word. So if you're trying to be politically correct, you're never going to be. So we never going to be like the walking around America, everybody's saying everything politically correct, and nobody's not going to say nothing out of correctness. You're going to have that. You're going to have that. But yeah, as we raising our young kids, we want them to be better than we were. But we're going to have to challenge America, because our black kids, if we're talking about our nationalities too, our black kids is dealing with a lot of going on out here in this world that's being called nigger, everything. They're going to hear those words regardless when you don't think they're not going to hear it. They're going to be in a place where there's going to be somebody Caucasian that's going to call them out their name. And what do you want them to say when you've been called out your name, as we're trying to be politically correct?
I think the thing to say is, it's not funny anymore. This, like, you're a comedian, so you should be the most aware of that. That things over time stop being funny. Like, you can make a new act. The N word is not the same old thing. The N word has evolved. The N word in itself has evolved from its origination of Negro, and that's in itself its own history. But we have to understand that we have to start saying this isn't funny. Like, like a lot of times when you say words, you say it for with the intent of eliciting a response. And when you've already stated this, when you came in and you saw the room full of women, you said, look at aren't they going to act like B words? And you said that to say you heard they always say that, so you wanted to see what would happen if you said it. You were trying to elicit a response, but guess what? It's not funny. It's not funny.
And it's not funny when they say it.
But,
so I'm looking at them like, damn, this is not
but
funny.
my inside
So
joke is not your inside joke. So guess what? It's not funny. When just like when you see somebody sit there and say the same joke for the 55th time, you know that conversation when you got that one friend who has to rehash the joke 45 times, like ha ha ha. You know, the horse and the mouth. Yeah, that was funny, right? And it's like 10 years later, he's saying, and remember the horse and the mouth? Ha ha ha. Yeah, that was funny, right? And everybody's looking at him like, no, it's not. Stop. The joke is over. The joke is way over.
When does the women
we can't tell
him
that. Well, we can't tell people to stop using the N word, but we got to stop saying the B word too. We can't pick and choose which ones we say and which ones we don't. We can't do that. Everything has to be on an equal footing.
But the part of equal footing is understanding that everyone is different. That's my statement. Equal footing is not the same. It's not everybody is the same. It's that we are all different, accepting the differences within each other to be respected as a human being. So as everybody is different, everybody has their own understanding, everybody has their own inside jokes. My family inside jokes are not your family's inside jokes. You may have some jokes from Ghana that I will never know or get, and I may have some jokes from Jamaica that you may never know or get. That's okay, because that's my jokes, that's our family's jokes, that's whatever. But guess what? Certain jokes, if I said it and I was joking about Ghana, you're gonna look at me like, that's not funny. That wasn't funny. That wasn't cool. Why would you say that? And I would sit there and be like, my bad. Sorry, I will never say it again. Like that, and like that's okay. I'm okay with being corrected. I'm okay with not speaking around you. But I also believe that people have the right to speak how they feel like in their personal spaces. That's my statement.
Okay, so
what if Uncle Carl is in his group with his friends? Uncle Carl is in his group with his friends, and they're calling women a B word. And other people hear it. Is he wrong for saying that in his group with his people? The thing is, we can't say that it's wrong when it's in private, or it's wrong when it's right when it's in private. It's wrong is wrong, period. We cannot right wrong. Wrongs are wrong. And if we want people to stop, we have to stop. That's it across the board. We can't keep just saying, it's okay for me to say it. It's okay for her to say it, but we're not going to let him say it. That's wrong. However you say it is wrong.
I respectfully disagree on that, just because I believe everybody has the right to their culture and whatever nuances are in accordance.
So then Uncle Carl can call women the bees in his group, even if you're standing around.
Point blank period. He's not part of that culture.
What?
He's not.
So
I don't get that. How is he not part of that culture?
Yeah, I'm lost. Really lost.
Okay, so what I'm saying is the culture difference of being a woman versus being a man. Those are different cultures. We have to accept that. That is just how.
So women took on the B word. Now we've empowered women with the B word. Now you're saying that? Just like you said before, they empower women, Black people with the N word. That's not right. We're taking on negative stereotypes.
I'm saying that whatever your culture is whatever behaviors you act within your culture. I think that whatever, and the rules of your culture are not for other people outside of your culture to have a space for. I won't have a conversation.
But the N word is not part of our culture. How did the B word become a part of our culture?
Because if that's the case, that means that Chinese people would make the word chink a part of their culture.
It is part of their
culture.
But they don't sit around and call each other like, what's up,
they
chink? They don't sit around and do that.
But they do.
Every culture talks about their own.
Every culture talks about their own.
But we shouldn't be.
But we don't have the space to talk about their culture. So that's what I'm saying. Every culture talks about their own. Every culture has their own way of speaking about their own. At the end of the day, women.
But the B word is not a cultural thing.
It is.
It's a white is not a cultural thing.
It is. Unfortunately, it is, because it wasn't born out of Black.
How?
I'm trying to finish. The B word was not bound to Black women's culture. It's bound to women's culture as a whole. White women started that energy.
No, you accepted. You have accepted the negativity into your life, and you made it part of your culture. It's not our culture. You have accepted negativity and took it on as your own, and now you're mad when somebody else says it. You can't take on negativity and get mad when somebody is being negative. So, that's totally hypocritical.
Here's the thing. I'm not saying bitch wasn't invented this week. I wasn't here when that word was made up. I wasn't here when the N-word was made up, which is why I say I have no space to police anybody for when they say it. I just say that if I'm in this conversation, this is the rules of this conversation. And if I'm in this conversation, that's the rules of this conversation. I understand.
Police Uncle Carl.
Because he is not a woman as a part of the female culture.
I don't accept that as a part of my culture. You
can't
put that on me.
But I'm not saying that it's your specific culture. I'm saying as a whole. I'm saying historically.
So how do you know whose culture is what then? How do you know whose culture is what? Because now we're making things up to be a part of culture. No. So how do we know what's a part of somebody's culture and when it's not?
Well, let's look at the historical connotation of the word. Like, let's do that right now. Because that's not hard.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when it started. It doesn't matter when it started or who put it out there. You're saying I have to accept that as a woman, if another woman says B, then it's okay. But if a man says B, then it's not. That's wrong. Now we're playing favorites. We're doing all kind of stuff.
I'm saying that I can accept it if a woman says it more than I can accept it if a man says it, because the conversation within cultures are different and the tone of the word is different per culture. But
so it's sort of like segregation still. We're still segregating things we can say and do, but now we're just calling it culture. That's basically what it is.
Honestly, I'm not gonna say no to that. I do believe that everybody has the right to their differences. I believe that everybody has I believe that life is a salad.
Having differences has nothing to do with accepting negativity. The conversation here tonight was about why we are implementing these negative things into our lives and accepting it. And we're accepting it and we're calling it culture. I think a lot of people's mindsets have accepted negative as part of who they are because they're still living under the blanket of what we've been taught a long time ago instead of standing on our own 2 feet.
Yes.
And my personal belief is that whatever
a couple of comments from the audience really quick here.
So, yeah, I got one. I got a question right now.
Talking right now. So Leo Johnson, basically, he says the media, of course, was created to place it amongst our culture, and people in our culture made it possible. Multi-masking and
yes.
Then Stacy says, I understand that not everyone from the Black culture doesn't want to be called the N or the B word. I can respect that. I am not calling nobody your majesty. That ain't never gonna happen. And then Leo Johnson made another comment and said, to each conversation that takes place amongst people we love or insulate ourselves with, I understand. But also, I want to apologize to Ms. B. We've been carrying on and we haven't given you a chance to voice your opinion. Did you want to voice your opinion?
Yeah, I did earlier. I guess it goes back to the beginning, which has been a little minute, but I agree wholeheartedly with what Leah was saying. A little with what Coach was saying as well. But I guess my issue with the whole terms come into play because the N-word for me was never used growing up in my household. It was a word that you knew had a lot of derogatory meaning behind it. And for me being raised in a single family household, that term for myself, I didn't start using it until I got grown enough to where I made my own decisions to use the term. For me, I never looked at the N-word being so much of a negative because within the Black culture that I was raised in, there were plenty of my friends that used the term. We didn't use it to put down one another. When it was said, it was just within our.
Right now, tell me, I'm on a podcast. I'm on a podcast right now.
Okay. It was just something. Okay. It was just something that was used as we greeted each other, and that was that. But at the same time, within my circle of friends, outside of that circle, that particular word was not used for the next circle of people that I may have engaged in conversation with, because the term, I wasn't close enough to them to know how they would respond. Like Coach said earlier, of what she's doing in her home with her kids, which is very true. The way you raise your children and what you want to instill in them is what they come out of their homes with. So when I look at the term, like, from history wise, the N word was a Spanish term that was used to describe the color of the people. When it got here to the United States and during the slavery time, it then began to take on a form of being negative among the Black culture that was here. So overall, when you look at where it's been, when we use it of today, we're no longer to say in the slavery of our ancestors that was first planted here on the United States grounds. But at the same time, not everyone has the same, I would say, meaning or the same. Okay, thank you. The same attachment to say to that negative term to describe and to relate in that sense. So yes, for me, stepping outside of the culture, if a white person was to use that term, would I take offense to it? Would I feel some sort of way? Yes. Another Black person using that term, if I don't know you that well and you step and say something, or if I'm with my husband and someone calls him out and we don't know that person, yeah, we don't know you like that. However, if it's somebody that we know and that we've been around and that's just their term that they use, okay, I accept it. I don't have a problem with it. So I don't know in that sense of what Coach was relating to as far as taking it out of our Black culture or out of a term to just get rid of. I can't really see that too much happening, because just like Leah was saying, which my daughter studies the Korean culture, and there are certain acts, there are certain terms that are used that, not being a part of that culture, you would never step out of bounds and approach those people with. But within their culture, they do that. So that's my take on it. As far as the B word, I don't use the B word myself. I have friends that do. Again, both of those terms for me, I go by my name, and that's what I answer to. Conversation wise, if it's brought up, if someone speaks it or whatever, I don't really take too much to it. And that's just my take on it.
Well, I like a lot of what B said, but the word Niger, Niger, was where we got it from the Latin word, where the Spanish people called it black. But when you talk about Nigger, that comes from a contempt. It's a negative thing, the way they talk about Black people. It is a big difference. A lot of people do confuse that, but it's a big difference between Niger and Nigger.
So, that is true.
That was my question earlier. Do you guys think when another person of another race uses the Nigga word, do they really mean ill intent? Because we all know that when they used it back then in slavery, they used the word with the ER on the end. So if they're not using that word, do you really think that they really mean ill intent?
Even if they don't mean it, they can't help but the shadow of where it comes from can't help but like exude off of it. As long as we have this anti-Black energy in our culture, anyone outside of the Black diaspora saying the N-word will always have that feeling of anti-Blackness. If we were all racially diverse and we all were on the equal footing, and the schoolhouse to jailhouse pipeline wasn't a thing, then sure, I would have no issue with whatever word, however we say it. But guess what? Right now, we are still dealing with racism. We are still dealing with slavery. We are still dealing with political injustice. We are still dealing with an entire insurrection that occurred, and they're still chilling.
can Uncle C get in here for a minute here?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Because I had the privilege of calling a white man a nigger. Or I'm gonna say it like that. I had the privilege of calling him, you know, an N-word. You know what I call he was so shocked that I called him an N-word. And reason why I called him because we was at work and he was just being a radical, but I called him an N-word. Now, because I called him an N-word, he wanted to go to the boss so bad to say, Carl called me an N-word.
You was right.
And the boss looked at him like, okay, what you want me to do about that? Because he's so Caucasian.
But
You
he
know
was
what I'm
right.
saying? He's
Honestly,
so white.
but guess what?
He's so white.
That is a human
Let me finish.
resources
Let me
problem.
finish. Let me finish. Let me finish. He was so white that I called him a N-word. And he wanted to go to the boss to tell him, Carl called me a N-word. But the boss looked at him like, well, what you want me to do about that? He couldn't do nothing. Now, if I had to call him a cracker, or a hunky, then the boss might have worked out that. But I called him the N-word because he was acting like an N.
What is acting
In
like an
many
N?
ways, I'm speaking now. In many ways, I'm speaking.
But what is
He was
acting like an
acting out
N?
I called him an N-word, and I meant it. Because
But you
anybody
have a
can be
habit
an
of saying
N-word.
someone's acting like, but you're not defining what acting like is. So what was acting like an N-word that you felt the energy to call this random white person an N-word?
Yeah, because he was acting like a nigga.
So
Can I say it now?
what is
He was
what is
acting ignorant.
acting
He
like
was
one?
acting ignorant. He was doing stupid stuff. He doing stuff he ain't supposed to be doing. And I just know that he was acting just out of his
And then we
proportion.
say
And
it's
then when
okay
you
to call
behave like
ourselves
that, and
out.
when you
Then
do
we
say
say it's
things
okay
like
to
Everybody
that,
call
can
you
be
are
ourselves
called.
out.
exactly
That's
what
just
F
so
is
wrong.
complaining about. That's the
Anybody
energy
can be
that
Then we
called
say
an
it's
N-word.
okay. That's just wrong. That's just wrong on
see,
every
see,
level.
but the thing
Because
is
you're
that
saying
acting
that
that
acting
energy
like
that
an
F is talking
end.
about.
Yeah, you're saying acting like an end means you're acting foolish, but we call each other that. We're calling each other foolish. The word actually means to despise, but we should not be saying I despise one another. I think I'm not trying to be funny, but it was more appropriate. It's appropriate to call anybody that if you despise them, but just to be saying that amongst one another as endearing, it's just wrong. It's
But
just so
I
wrong
said
on
it.
any
I
level.
said it because he was acting out of himself. And I said the N-word because he couldn't go back to the boss and tell the boss that I called him a hunky or cracker or anything. So the boss looked at him like, okay, what you want me to say about that?
I'm gonna tell you the honest truth.
So
If
it
I
was
was
like
HR, you
saving
would
my
have gotten written
job.
up for it.
But I
That's
just threw that out there at the time
inappropriate.
because, well, it might have been inappropriate. It was inappropriate how he was doing his job and putting it off on me. I'm not finna do his work, but I just called him the N-word because I didn't want him to go back to the boss and say, hey, Carl called me a hunky or he called me a cracker. But if I said the N-word, then he go to the boss and say, hey, Carl called me the N-word. And the boss gonna look at him like, okay, so now what you want me to do about that?
I have
Because
another
you white.
comment from someone in the audience. So this one is from Leo Johnson again. So the N word should be accepted to a certain extent, even though it was created for such destruction. But as Black people, we've adapted to the beauty of it, but not the media such as hip hop, trap, and etc. It's not accepted because it's used
Calm down, man.
to mislead. I feel if the behind the scenes were broadcasted amongst most audience, people wouldn't misuse the word as much. Or for white folks to use it as a hatred word. The more we fake, the more we take our bruises and lick our wounds, no one can mislead us. Like it or not, our skin will always create chaos around the world because we are the most loving and creative beings on this planet.
I agree. As long as we give it the veritas of making it such a as long as we give it Veritas, it's gonna always be that energy. And in perfect honesty, if I was the white guy, I would have called HR too, because I don't care if you call me your version of a bad word or my version of a bad word. If you calling me out my name at my job, I'm calling up HR like that. And I have a right to be a Karen in any way, shape, or form. And my rule of thumb right now is that 2021 is me taking on my Karen energy. I will call HR faster than you can say HR. I don't play like that at my work center, because that is a tone and that is a space. And again, the way he just described using the N word is exactly what Essie is against. And that's what I agree
Right.
on that point. I agree that when you use the word with that energy of saying that you are calling someone as a negative connotation, that you are putting that energy in the world and you are allowing people to say that word. Because now that this white man has been called an N-word, he's gonna have it in his heart and his balls that he's gonna be able to say it to somebody sometime down the line, because they said I was called it once, so that means I could say it to somebody else. That's just that Veritas that you put in that energy and you put on somebody. And that is, you are exchanging cultural laws that are not for you to exchange. That was not correct. And that puts what Essie was saying this whole time back into the front of the conversation. If you choose to use it in its negative light, in its negative definitions, and you continue with the negative definitions, then yes, it is going to always be something that drags us down. That's going to always be something that drags us as a people, as a community, as a culture. That will always be something that drags us down. But if you allow a word to evolve and become a better, and you become better, and then people will naturally stop saying words once they become better. People have the capability of becoming better. We all have the capability of being better, but we just we can't be so gung-ho. We can't be cold turkey about it. We have to be like, okay, as Essie was saying, we can have that conversation after you finish your statement. We can have that conversation after you finished your sentence. And I agree with you. And I'm also someone who, if you set the tone for the conversation, I will accept the tone of the conversation. If you don't want me saying the N-word, I won't say the N-word around you. That's okay. And that's agreeing with the rules. And as Ms. B was saying, that if she's with her friends, her conversation with her friends and family is different from her conversation with someone they meet on the street. I have the same feelings. If I don't know you can't call me the N-word, because I don't know what your definition of the N-word is. I know what my friend's definition of the N-word is. I know what my friend's definition of the B-word is. That's why I can't allow them to say it. But if I don't know what your definition is of the word is, you can't use it around me yet. Until we have that conversation, until we are close enough to understand what your definition of these words are, what your meanings are behind those words, then I agree that no, you should not be saying it. But if you have those definitions where you are taking it from the negative aspects, when you are seeing it from its negative aspects and you would define it from its negative aspects, no, you cannot say that word.
All right. I have a question here from a friend of mine. And his question is,
my question goes back to pertaining when y'all the B word, like females allow homosexual males to call them the B word, and I know y'all broke it down to as in, oh, you're not a female, but y'all let homosexual males do it. Why is that?
Because
that's a good question.
I see it as they say it to each other, and it's the B word is used within their culture towards each other first. So I understand what their definition of the B word is when they.
So what? But I think you're still giving excuses to people, because what if white people call themselves the N word and they amongst each other? So now they can't say it to black people, like you just said males can do it because they said to each other. So we can't.
I'm saying that within the
LGBT
community, I'm saying within the LGBT community, I have no control over the LGBT community. I don't know what goes on in the LGBT community, but I'm saying that in those scenarios, they use the word in exchange with each other, just like they use the F word in exchange with each other, and they use a lot of words that I will never say in exchange with each other. And a lot of times when they use it, and again, that's a tone conversation. That's a, what is your personal definition of a word? If your definition of the word, if the conversation when your community is using the word as this definition, then okay, whatever I understand this community's definition of the word is, sure. I'm not going to say anything. I'll just be like, I don't say it, or whatever. Like, but if it's someone who is from a white community where the N-word was predominantly used as a negative stereotype, and it still continues to be used as a negative stereotype, then no, I know that the meaning is different.
But what if they're using it the way you use it with your friends? What if they use it the way, or Uncle
if we are
friends
friends
with his friend?
But if we're friends like that, I don't have an issue. But if we're not friends, no, we're not. It's your circle. My circle is different from that circle. If they use it when they're within their community to each other, that's none of my business, because they're talking to each other. They're not talking to me. Why am I in their business? I'm not minding anybody's business but my own.
But what if you have a friend that's a guy that's gay and he uses that word with you? Are you okay with it?
If he is my friend and I already know his definition of the word, okay. But again,
isn't that a double standard? Because earlier you said that Trump is not allowed to use it because he doesn't have a vagina. They don't either.
But
that's right.
So, but here's the thing. We decided that was because of how Carl defined bitches. Sorry for using the word, but that was because of how he stated it. It was not because of him stating it. It was because of how he stated it. He said they were going to act like B words. Oh, they're going to act like, oh, I walked in, the first thing I said was they're going to act like B words. That is immediately stating that you have a negative connotation to the word. If they are saying it as whatever.
I said that because I know them.
Whatever.
I said it because I know them. They done been at my wedding. They done been at everything.
Well, if they thought you were cool, then they would not have an issue with it. If they thought you were cool enough to say it, and if they thought you were saying it with a positive energy, they wouldn't have had beef with you. But you have already stated that they had an issue with you saying it. So that means that they felt that there was an issue with how you said it.
I don't think no matter what, I don't think no matter how I said it, they was going to treat it the way they was going to treat it. And I'm saying, as a man, women should not use that word to each other if they don't want nobody else to use it at each other. So
then you can say the same thing about N-word. You can say the
same thing about the N-word.
So you shouldn't say the N-word anymore.
Well,
Carl, should no longer say the N-word. If you have that belief, you should not say the N-word.
I used it. When I use the N-word, I use the N-words when I'm doing my comedy, because it was like, that's when it need to be used. That's all. And it's not like I walk up and down the street calling everybody, "What's up, nigga? What's up, nigga? What's up, nigga?" I'm sorry for saying those words, but as a comedian, it's things that I done had things going on in my world, and it was at the time where it needed to be said. It wasn't. It's a joke, but it wasn't like it's simplicity to put people online and calling everybody the N-word, because we Black, and I'm proud to be Black. But I don't like to call. Hey, I check my little kids about being niggas or saying those words. But I mean, sometimes as a comedian, sometimes you go, "Oh, look at that motherfucker."
I got a comment from the audience again. So Leo Johnson said, and I think this is more directed to the young guy who asked the question. He said, "Feminine, bro. They feel a more feminine source, less force and masculinity. Is it right? No. No man should, but hey." And then he said, what is the definition? Basically, what is the definition of the word bitch?
When you're saying it to amongst your friends, is that the correct what you mean?
Leo Johnson, can you elaborate on that? What do you?
Because B is a female dog. That's just another term for a female dog.
I'm asking for the definition of when people use it. What are they meaning when they use it? While we're waiting for that clarity, Miss Linda, something you'd like to add?
Am I meaning in the same way they mean?
Yeah, we used to. We knew about it. We always said the definition was a dry piece of wood.
For a B?
Yeah.
For the B word? I always thought the definition meant a female dog.
I mean,
So
Yeah, it's a female dog or wolf or
It was
fox.
a dry piece of wood.
So there's lots of definitions, and that's the beauty of the evolution of language. So you can find multiple definitions for the word bee. If you look on Merriam Dictionary, it's a female dog or other carnivorous animals. A malicious, spiteful, or overbearing woman, a generalized term of abuse, something that's difficult, objectionable, or unpleasant. It's also defined as one of the most versatile words in the English dictionary because it's used to express a multitude of emotions: anger, anticipation, despair, endearment, envy, excitement, fear, horror, joy, shock, surprise, warning, all achieved by one's enunciation and intonation. So intonation. So enunciation and intonation is very important in the use of the word, and I think that needs to be respected and understood. And I think that's the core of what my beliefs are in regards to the definition of the word.
Yes, I'm gonna come back here and give.
Okay, so Leo dropped out back with his what he was saying. He was saying being able to say it. When a person is saying it, what is the definition that allows them to be able to say it? And then he said, what's his definition to be able to use it? I want her to elaborate on that. I think he's talking to you, Leah.
I use it as a word of the emotion. I use it as an emotional word. I can say that I don't call my female friends the word in particular so much as I use it to enunciate how I was feeling about the statement. So if you'll say something and I'll go, bleh, like it'll be as a response or as an expression of my feelings about the moment. I think that I use the same, and I use the N-word in the same with the same energy. It's not, I don't define a person as an N-word. I wouldn't define an individual as a B-word, but I would use it to enunciate the conversation. So I think that's what I would use it in my personal spaces in my company. Again, I wouldn't do that in a workspace. I wouldn't do that with people who I don't feel comfortable having those conversations with. I don't even say that around men because I don't like those conversations. I'll say dude if I'm with my guy friends. When I'm with my male best friends, I'll say dude, bruh all the time instead of the B word. And then if I'm with my female friends, I'll say sis or B in the same enunciation and intonation of expressing my emotion, not to define a person. I don't like defining anybody by anything because it's not my job to define anybody. It's your own. You can only define yourself, but I understand using it as an expression.
He also,
I just don't understand. I guess I'm trying to figure out why is it that we have to express ourselves negatively. Like I can understand us saying dude or bro, whatever. That's just words, but why do we have to go to the negative side and use the B word or the N word? Why can't we just use any other word?
I don't see the point in giving. I don't give words as that much energy. I genuinely.
But we can't say that the word doesn't mean what it means. It means what it means, no matter how you choose. Like I said, I can call a duck a chicken all day long, but it's still going to be a duck at the end of the day.
I mean, but you can still pay $15,000 and get a specific duck called a chicken. Like you can do that. There is a gnat called the Benedict Cumberbatch right now because somebody.
So then why couldn't the guy who was transgender black be black? I mean, we can't keep making up saying what is good, and we are making up rules as we go along. That's what's making it difficult for us as a society. We can't do that.
But that's what language is. Language is constantly evolving.
Language has an origin. Language has an origin.
Of course,
and then we try to change it. But then we try to change it to fit our needs.
And that's human nature. That's perfect. That is human nature.
So you said human nature is now going into us using negative words as a positive thing, and we should be okay with that.
I'm not saying to be okay with it. I'm just saying to understand that
it's the Bible's telling us that we shouldn't. Our words have power. Doesn't mean anything anymore.
I'm not going to go down that road with you because I got my own opinions on that. But I'm just going to say that language changes with time.
Can I also?
I wanted to read. I just wanted to read this real quick, and then Bia, you can have it.
Okay.
So he asked, and I think this is for you, Leah. why is a gay guy more different than a masculine man? And he also said, you said your guy friend is more able to say it than a masculine man.
Wait, to say what?
The B word.
I wouldn't say. I don't know how to define that, and I don't really know how to answer it. I'm gonna be honest. It's simply energy and feeling, and everybody has a right to how they enunciate and intonate their words. The energy and tone behind a word changes its definition and its veritas to me and to the people around me. I oftentimes, and this may, if I've heard someone, a man, say it in a non-negative term and in a feminine term, sure, I'll give space to those outliers. I will give, and I will respect the space of those outliers, and I will respect that there are people who can say it without having that energy or that veritas behind it. But I'm saying, as a
so you're the judge of who that is. So who becomes the judge of when someone is saying it properly and not properly?
I'm my own personal, just like you can say intent is different from impact. So you may not mean it.
But how do you know that how my intent or impact is? How can you, if I say I'm saying it friendly and you say that I'm not saying it friendly?
Well, then you have to, I would respect. So here's the thing. If that's the conversation, I respect the person who feels offended. No matter what the conversation is, whoever is having the conversation, whoever's feeling offended, I'll respect that person. So if you say, I feel offended when you say the B word, I won't say the B word around you, period. That's me respecting you as an individual. And if how I said it made you feel offended, I will stop saying it around you because I will respect the fact that your offense is outweighing my feelings.
That's just,
I respect your offense.
Can Uncle Carl jump in on
this? No, we're gonna let B talk. She wanted to speak, so we're gonna let B talk real quick, and then
Oh, thank you. I just had, like, I think it was Coach that said that words are power, but with or having power behind the words that we speak, how we use certain words determine the power in which it's used, and the effect that comes with that. The B word here for me, like I say, I don't use the B word. I have friends that do, but whenever I've used it in a negative sense because I was angry, because whatever came off, I was using it as a curse word to that person. To address my friends as a B this and B that, that's never been my thing. The same thing with the same thing with the N word as well. Like I said, when I'm with a certain group of my friends that I know, that word has, like Leah was saying, a meaning that we all are in agreement upon, to where it's not a negative. However, flip side to that, if I'm upset with a gentleman or with a female of my race and we've gotten into an argument and I've used the N word to be a negative impact, then I've done that purposely to use.
But that don't mean it was bad. It's just because you black and that's the word you use when you use it. Because let me tell you, as a comedian, is anybody listening?
Yeah, we're listening.
Right. Now, as a comedian, as I'm standing on stage, I'm not trying to feel people's feelings. I'm just trying to make people laugh and get into the attitude of what's going on. Whether that's white people in the audience, Chinese people in the audience, all kind of people in the audience. My job is to make people laugh at all costs. So I'm not trying to be politically correct and all that good stuff. I'm trying to be a comedian. And I know y'all have seen many comedians that going out there and talked about race and all kind of stuff. So that's the funniness of it when you laugh at it. When you laugh at the bull stuff. I'm not trying to be politically correct. I'm just trying to be funny and making people laugh, whether black or white, Puerto Rican, or whoever's in my audience. I'm going to talk about everybody.
But why does the entertainment have to be negative? But why does the entertainment have to be negative?
It's not negative. It's all positive type of stuff because we laughing at stuff that's going on in the world.
Laughing don't mean it's not negative. It just means you
laugh. That's right. It still could be negative.
If it's funny, it's funny. So
not.
take it as it is.
So
You
if
want to
white
know
people
something
are saying
interesting?
stuff about black people and they're laughing, that's funny, but that don't make it right.
Well, I may not make it right.
So
But if
then why are
everybody
we
know we
doing
got
it?
some crackheads in our families, God damn it, we know we got some crackheads in our families.
And even then we can talk about, but there's a different veritas when you call them a crackhead and they call
Well,
it, and
come
then
on
there's
now.
a
See,
different veritas from when you say that I have a family
too
member that has an
politician.
addiction. There's a different
Stop
conversation,
being too
different energy.
politician. Stop being too politician.
Weren't you being politician earlier?
Yeah, I talk about politicians all the time. Them son of a bitch, son of a guns.
And again, it comes down to, we can pick better words. Like I can drop the N word, I can drop the B word. I don't have a problem dropping the word. That's not an issue for me. I just believe that everybody has the right to whatever cultural lingo is that they feel comfortable within their culture, and whatever enunciation and intonation and the words, that the meaning and the tone of how you say a word. I can call you you know what? You're a pudgewuggy.
What's a pudgewuggy?
I don't know, but I decided you're a pudgewuggy. Guess what? Pudgewuggy. Look at this pudgewuggy. Now I don't mess with no pudgewuggies anymore. At pudgewuggies. Guess what? Now y'all offended. Now I'm gonna call you pudgewuggy. Like, what she mean by that? Like, that's
I'm like, what the hell is a pudgewuggy? What the
exactly.
hell?
And you like, who the? But guess
That's
what?
funny to me because I don't even know what it is. So
exactly.
I agree. I totally agree with Leah that we don't have the right to take anybody's freedom away. We don't have the right to take anybody's freedom away. They can say what they want to say, and they're gonna do what they want to do. But just because they can say what they want to say and do what they want to do, don't make it right. And it don't help our people.
So
it don't help
me
us raising
being a
our children. It don't give
comedian-
our people the right mindset. It don't help us to go to another level in life.
Well, me being a comedian, and I throw a lot of stuff out there at people. Sometimes even black people, and they don't laugh at it, they go, mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because they know it's right. I'm not always politically correct. Sometimes, like I tell people, I'm not always funny. I just keep stuff for real. So, I mean, even though we dealing with our people around our neighborhood.
Like pudgewuggy.
But guess what?
Pudgewuggy.
And look at my pudgewuggy. Like, look at, and that's my pudgewuggy right there. Like, again, it's how you tone it, your intonation.
See, that's funny.
A lot of words are so beautiful that they can change with just how you say it. You can say I love. Everybody said
you say that right now. You say that right now. But if you were to go and call a baby that, a child of 3 or 4 years old, and you say, I'm lovingly calling you a bee, why that child is not going to receive it that way. You have to understand. You have to understand that words have an origin. But we can't change the origin no matter what we want. We can say we're going to give it a tone. We can say I mean this, and we can say I mean that. But that word always has its original meaning. And when we speak that original meaning out into the world, it comes back to us. No matter what you say, it's going to come back to you.
No, but I agree with that completely, Essie. I when we talk about that is when you put that energy into the world, you bring it back. So if you have a child who has no idea what the B word is, and you teach her that the B word means applesauce, and she just looks like, hey, daddy, can I have some B word? And somebody looks at you like your child is crazy, but to the child, B word means applesauce. She don't know the difference because it doesn't have that connotation until she learns.
But it's gonna hurt her in the long run when somebody
because she learns it from somebody else. So that's the thing. We got to change the definition. We got to change how we.
We don't change the definition. We just pick another word.
Yeah, you can't change the definitions of words that already have definition.
Yes, you can.
Right.
That's literally that's what words do. How you think the B
words
word
have a
definition? Somebody change the definition of a word.
But just because they change it don't mean it's changed.
So what you trying to say? If I want to call a hoe, I'm gonna say Give me.
So that's pretty hoe.
Y'all don't remember the I'm a slut
So
movement where
I
they
would
were
call
like,
her a
I'm proud to
donut.
be a slut, and that used to be a fully
But that didn't
negative
make right.
connotation.
That didn't make it good. That was not right.
But that
Going around saying I'm a slut. How in any terms is that okay?
but that's what that
Would
was
you
the
want if you had a
feeling.
child? Would you want your child doing that?
I'm
We
not
got to think
asking.
about the generational and the large impact it is going to have on all of society, not just in our small groups. We
Mhm.
can't. We have to think on a larger scale. I'm going around saying I'm a slut. Then my daughter says she's a slut, and then what happens? Why these
Yeah.
people doing this?
But I
Why
mean,
we can't do that?
but here's the
And
thing.
we can't make it okay because they're saying it's okay.
But that's what
Yeah, you
words
can't
do.
tell them they Twinkies and shit, and that means hoe. You know what I'm saying? You a Twinkie. Oh, what that mean? A Twinkie. Oh, that means a hoe. No, you can't go around telling them that
But
stuff.
that's how new words
I'm
come
sorry.
out all the time.
What happened?
No, that's literally how new words come up all the time. That's why we got nice drip.
You a
What is
twit.
a drip? What is a drip? What is capping? Please explain to me what capping is. Where did capping come from?
But somebody
There's
made it
no
up and they
cap.
trying to make it a part of society, but we don't have to accept it.
But
We don't have to accept
we
that.
don't
That's the
have.
Yeah,
whole
we ain't got to
thing.
But here's the thing: we don't have to. We don't have to accept
You
anything. But guess
oh,
what? The
you know they got
definitions, words are beautiful because they have the ability to change. You can choose
No,
to
words are what
refuse
they
to not to
are.
accept the change. You can choose to refuse to accept other people's definition. You can choose whatever you want to choose, and we can obey whatever
hey,
rules are in
yeah,
our
yeah,
household.
yeah. So
I
that's
think
what the word
society is
came
trying to
up.
make us a people of followers instead of leaders. I think
Well,
a society wants us to be
yeah,
these
a
soldiers that
hoe
are
is
just
a
following
hoe
them
is
with
a
whatever
hoe
they
is a hoe.
say.
Yo,
And
I
that's
wish I could find. I have a mug with my name on it because I went on Urban Dictionary and looked up my name, and I found my
hey,
name
that's
on
the
Urban
word.
Dictionary, and I was like, you know what? I like this definition, and I was like, you know, how they find out about me, and I now have a mug with my name on it that says what kind of person I am based off my Urban Dictionary, and I enjoyed that definition of Leah. Like
Need to
that was
get on.
fun for me. And I accepted that definition, but I don't have to accept
All
every
right,
definition of
let
my
me
name.
try to be
You can
nice.
look up your name right now and find a
That's
different definition for
you got
everybody
mad.
because everybody has
Come on.
different definitions for everything. That's what words do. Words evolve, words change, and we have to be able to move with the change in order to dilute it. Stop making it such a
I am
bad
never
thing
going to
in
get
order
so
because
close.
the
I'm never
more you
going to
make
call
it a
my daughter a
negative
B
thing,
and
the
say
more you
that's
put that.
love. I'm never going to call my daughter a B and say that's
Well,
love.
And
I'm never going to
and
call
that's
my
words,
best friend a B and
but
say that's love.
but I'm not
That I
asking
don't care
for.
how much society is going. Even on TV shows and the music, they said it's supposed to be loving. To me, if I did that, I'm conforming. I'm being who they want me to be. I'm
And nobody's
changing the
asking
way
you to
I
change
am.
that. I don't think
Yes,
anybody's
that's
asking
what
you to change
society is
that.
doing. They are slowly brainwashing people to believe this stuff is okay. And they start in the African American community because if the African Americans do it, then the world's going to follow because they think we the coolest people, although they try to keep us down.
yes, yes, yes. Black people are the coolest people in the world. I mean, everything that we have done, they're following. I don't even remember, I don't think black people had to go to do no what y'all call it, the dance, your booty dance, whatever. But they
Working.
got white people
What's
who
twerking? Please
open up,
define twerking for me. Where did
they
that word
open
come
up,
from?
they open up shops to teach white people how to do the what you call them dances y'all do
Twerk.
the twerk. They open up shops to teach them how to twerk.
Yo, what's
Well, hey,
crumping?
stop that, Uncle Carl, because I don't know how to twerk.
Yo, what's
Yeah,
crumping?
Me
well,
either.
What's crumping? I remember
but you don't
crumping.
have to. But you don't have to go and pay 19.99 to learn how to twerk. All you got to do is go next door, or call your sister over, or call your cousin over. They
I'm gonna
twerking
be.
all the time. This is African stuff.
I'm gonna be
Everything that
honest. I don't
Africans
got a
is
twerk bone
doing,
in my body.
white
That's
people
my
want to take
12%.
over.
Sorry. I got
Well,
no twerk energy. I go long back, and like that's what it is. Like I
that's all
accept
right.
that, but
All
like
you gotta do.
I also
That's
accept the
okay,
fact
sis.
that I don't know what twerking, like I don't know the definition where that word came from. I don't know what
Well,
crumping, where that word
whatever it
came
is,
from.
I'm
I
telling you,
think,
you got a lot of people. I'm sure you got a lot of people black around you that
and
be
I
twerking.
And they
You know what
probably
I'm
can, but
saying? You
my
may
back
not
don't
be
do
able to
that.
do it.
My hips
Well,
don't
you
do that,
may
and
not
I
be able
accept
to
that.
do it yet, but I'm sure you in your
My
space
knees
and
went
time
no.
be like, okay, let me see if I can twerk it. Let me see. But I'm
I'm gonna
just
look
saying.
like Tina. I'm gonna look like Tina from
Is
Bob's
that is
Burgers,
twerking
only
the
that.
one with your butt?
I think so. There's twerking
Yes.
with the butt, and then there's
Yeah.
pumping with your chest, and then there's a lot of work that's happening. That's just a whole
Oh,
Southern
and
culture thing
now
that I
you
never
acting like
learned.
you don't. Now you act, but you acting like you don't know nothing about it. So you
I,
already done gave us the dimensions of everything about twerking.
Cause I don't. I'm like, I know one's with the butt, one with the back, but I know I can't do it, and I accept that. Like I took that L, and
Oh, well,
I don't
it
know,
seemed like you.
but it was
It seemed
because
like you
somebody else
working
had
on
to
it.
explain it. Somebody else had to explain it. You had to learn it.
Well,
You had
it
to
seemed
figure
like
out. You had to
it
change the
seemed it
definition.
seems like well, it seemed like you working on it.
It's just, I
Okay,
promise. One
Work
day I'm
on
gonna
it,
get it
girl.
right.
I'm gonna jump in and read another comment. So, um, Leo Johnson
Now
says
that's
Yo,
freedom of speech, but freedom of growth is not fair in this world. They purposely limit us from what they've taught us. I can't get this career because of what I lack the history of. I have to change my whole meanings definition to create success, which is installed in Black people. The double standard is which allows our own people to double standard their own. How's it okay to do and say behind closed doors, but not in the eye of an opportunity or
Right.
investors? That sucks. That's why most of society aren't where they like to be because of the transformation of success. The lack of comfort and the need to remove others you love, not being able to follow because of the lack of the lack of rate as you as yours. It's like you got to respect rap and trap at points because they somehow allows us to bring their culture with them, but negative because it usually doesn't have a positive impact for the newer generation. But overall,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying it's all domino effect. So that was what
I think a lot of what they said was true. I think a lot of what they said was true because we keep saying we want something, but like you said, we aren't really doing what we want. We aren't saying we want. Like I'm teaching my children they can talk anywhere. They should be able to talk to a bum on the street to the president of the United States and be who they are. They shouldn't have to change to do that. I'm teaching they should be able to sit in a boardroom and make $1 million deals. I'm not teaching them to do all these things that are foolish and take part in that foolish stuff because it closes doors because people do judge book by their covers. No matter what you want to believe, they're going to judge a book by its cover. And I'm not saying we should change who we are, but I'm saying we should be real to who we are ourselves and just continue that wherever we go. I'm not going to let a Black person, a white person, or anybody else call me the N word, the B word, or anything else. And I'm not going to say it to anybody else. But that's me straight across the board. I don't want to be changing who I am when I go somewhere or when I have to be, okay, should I say this right now? Should I not say this? Will this person accept it? They say B, but they don't say B. I'm not going, I just don't say it. I mean, we got to be real enough with ourselves so that we can be real wherever we go at all times.
and I agree with you. The thing is, the funny part about this whole conversation is that I think we corely agree with each other. Is that like this word shouldn't have the veracity or the energy that it has today. It should not be in the media the way it is today. It should not be spoken to the way it is today. I really hate listening to I thought DMX had Tourette's as a kid because I didn't know that they were removing all of the curse words that he was using. Um so I just
Now was that a
thought
joke?
that
Carl, please stop cutting people off, please.
but like once I learned and when I got older, like I started my job and it was at my job where I started cursing more often. And it was because I was working in a social work. I needed to be in a position where I could maneuver and navigate through a culture that was not my own. I was a social worker for 5 years where I was working with people who had lived through a lot and had gone through a lot of financial difficulties and were coming through a lot of cultural differences, and their words and their use of certain words was very different, and their meaning behind certain words was very different. And I couldn't take offense every time I heard them say certain words, but I did set a tone for how they spoke in certain areas. So I don't care if you were 6 feet taller than me. The moment you start cursing, I'm like, we can end this conversation right here. I don't care, because we're not cursing in the office. I'm sorry. As long as this tag is on my neck, there's not a curse word coming out of my mouth, and I'm not expecting the same out of you. And that's just how. And once they realized that was my tone, they treated me with that respect. And I heard a complaint from a client because a supervisor had tried to speak to them on their level, and they felt offended by that. So when they tried cursing with the person, they actually felt offended by how they were trying to speak on their level, and they felt that was being very condescending. So it's really it's not about judging people or whatever. It's about navigating this world and navigating how to speak to people and navigating how to not be offensive to as many people as possible. And there's certain things that just aren't funny anymore. And there's certain things that just don't have the same energy it used to anymore. No, we don't need to say the N word like we used to anymore. No, we don't need to say the B word like we used to anymore, because they don't have the same meanings or the same energies that they did in slavery times, in 1300s, in whenever. All of those things have changed over time, and we have to first respect it, accept it, and then change it. We have to look at what it is, what it's become, and say, so what can we do to make sure that we're not going down the same route, that we're not going backwards. We need to go forwards instead of backwards. And that's where I go and have the issue with how we police the word. While I do agree that individually we can have conversations about individually not saying the word, but I do have issues with having a conversation about culturally whether or not the word should be said. I think that if we talk about culture versus individual, those are two different conversations, because one leads to the other, but those are two different. One is too broad for us to have true control, and individuals we can control our individual thoughts. Each of us have our own individual thoughts and can move forward with our own individual thoughts.
Okay, that's good said. Now you got to get those people out there.
And now we got
to do that.
And that's the thing. We got to have that. We got to be open about how we are and how our self-respect. And as he was saying, as she teaches her kids, self-respect. Self-respect is something that once seen, it will be repeated. Because people who respect themselves will respect themselves in response, because they see how you act. They'll respond in turn naturally. You will they will either fall back completely because they are scared of it, or they will internalize it themselves and they will start doing it. That's because that's how change works. And in order to affect change, we have to say telling someone they're wrong will not affect change, but telling someone that they can change will affect change.
Okay,
well,
so
I want to
clarify what I was saying. I wasn't saying that. What I was saying is, if we don't like for other people, basically of other cultures, to use that word towards us, why don't we as people make a change? To each his own. I'm not trying to police anybody. I'm not trying to say anybody is wrong. All I'm saying is, let's not have the double standard.
Oh no, yes. I fully believe it. I believe in the double standard. Fuck them.
Double standard. We cannot be hypocrites.
I believe that it's not hypocritical to have your own culture. It's not hypocritical to respect your own whatever's happening in your personal culture. We have our own culture, and there are lots of history behind words and actions and outfits in our culture. There are reasons why
if a culture developed of stealing, that's their culture. I mean, where does it end?
If it's part of their culture, isn't that what Hammurabi's law was developed?
Can I jump in?
There was a culture of stealing, and then they decided, let's just chop off hands. Like that's what happened.
Come on, that's the Bible now. That's the Bible now. Can I jump in?
You saying it's right?
I'm saying that people will respond accordingly. Give people a chance to respond.
I don't think
you can't. We're stealing now. That's a part of our culture. I need you to respect that. That's not right.
Yeah. Can y'all hear me?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
we always.
All right, well, I'm just saying, this has been going on for a long time, a long time. And sometimes you're just not going to get rid of some things. I mean, you may get things to change a little bit away. But I understand how you feel, my sister, all about this change. But yeah, you know what? It's going to still be out there. And even if we stop saying it as black people, white people going to continue to say it. And then that's when you're going to start snapping as you're trying to get rid of it. But they're not going to let you know. They're going to let you know who you still are, who they want you to be, no matter how far you become. Just the same way as all the athletes on the field, black athletes who bend a knee. And even though those white people love them when they make a score, but hate them when they bend a knee. So they're going to
Mhm.
always remind you of who you are or where they think you're supposed to be. No
Mm-hmm.
matter how much they love you as a teamwork. Oh, he's working as a team with black and white people. But then yet when it comes down for you challenging them to make life better for black people, white people, and all brown people, they'll let you know just as where they took over that goddamn Capitol. They gave no F about who color you was. So
But
we
that's
can
something
keep
that
on
we gotta
talking
learn.
goodness. Hey, come on. You can keep on talking about this stuff, but they still out here. They still out here looking like they somebody that don't care, but they care about what they want to do for America. And you've been in America all your life, but I'm telling you, they would run over your ass.
Carl.
I think he
Am
froze.
I
I
heard
think he
one more.
froze.
Oh, I'm still there. But I'm just saying, but these are some of the things we have to think about, that how people would laugh at you, love you in your face, but still stab you in your back.
So how do we
You
change
know?
that?
So how do we change that? You're never gonna be able to change it. You just gotta keep
We can
on trying to
change it.
the put
You know,
things in
the black dollar
perspective.
stays. The black dollar stays in our community for about 63 minutes. It stays in other communities
Yeah.
like 7 days, 14 days.
You
We talking about the N word and the
talk to
B
me.
word, but it's a lot deeper than that. It's a lot deeper than that. We got to start looking
Yes,
at ourselves as
it's a
somebody
lot
to
deeper
respect,
than that.
going going to each other's businesses and take the Jewish community. They support other Jews. The Asian people support other Asians.
Yeah.
We got to support one another, and we support one another, but not tearing ourselves down, but going to each other and supporting one another. It's a lot deeper than what we're saying right now. We're talking about just the B word and the N word, but it's going to start with us changing our mindset and being a better people, period.
And how
Giving
we
our
talk
next
about each
generation
other in
something to
front of
look
other
at.
people. I think it's really important to think about how we talk about each other in front of other people. I
That's
think
what we've been saying. Pretty
when
much. That's what we've been saying.
if we're
That's
talking
what I'm
about
talking
that
about.
point, I've already said I fully agree. That how we act in front of other people is something that it's its own conversation and rules of thumb. We got to address it. Within our own communities, that's one conversation, but outside of our communities is another conversation. And I believe that if we are talking about outside of our communities in engaging with other cultures, no, we don't need to say the N word or the B word. If we're not talking within our communities, we don't need to say words that are from our communities. Just like if you're speaking in a room of Spanish people, you speak in Spanish, and if they are aware that there's an English people person speaking, you see the difference of if they continue to speak in Spanish, and that means they're othering you, or if they switch to English to include you. But either way, those conversations won't happen. Certain conversations won't happen. So I think when we talk about the N word and the B word, and we talk about outside of our personal community and the Black community and the Black diaspora, we do not need to say the N-word anymore. Period.
I as a life coach, I teach people that change starts with you. It don't change starts with the people around you or the people you're engaging with. It starts with you. So if we want to see change, it's going to start with us changing first so that we can see the change we want to see on the outside. We can't expect to see a change on the outside and we still doing what we're doing. That's not how it works.
Yes. There's a couple other people who would like to say something. I'm going to start with D, and then we're going to go to Leo Johnson. D.
You're muted.
Hello?
Am I on
Okay,
Yeah.
Yes, I can hear Leo, but I cannot hear B. She's still on mute.
Or no,
Yes.
Muted.
Oh, I'm here.
Okay.
Get back in, D.
Okay, go
Yeah,
on,
right
Leo.
Okay, my bad. I just was joining, like, so I kind of left when y'all was talking, so I'm kind of like out of discussion. So y'all can proceed, but I'll just talk as y'all continue to go. I'm lost on what the topic was now.
The topic is basically what we're discussing is using the N word and the B word. And we're not saying that we're trying to tell anybody that they're wrong, or we're not trying to police anybody. What we're trying to say is, if we find it offensive as Black people, why do we use it and get mad when other people use it? I mean, it's like a double standard that we're talking about here. So basically it's
When
about
you say other people,
wait.
but when you say other people, who is the other people?
White folk.
White folks, we ain't gonna say it. We just said it. So.
Non-Black people. If you do not identify as Black, period. If you do not identify as Black, that is my rule of thumb. If you do not identify as Black, you have no space to.
But Mexicans and Latinos call each other that all the time. They say that all the time.
And I think it's wrong. I think it's super messed up.
I had a question for you. Okay, so when you was talking about when you was in your workplace, right? And you were saying like how you would answer the phone for a claim, because it goes back to that last comment I said. It was talking about how like the world is double standard and how you can't really talk how you would talk at home with your loved ones and stuff. But when you get into a workplace, you got to be this certain person. So I was like, so what if you get a Black client on the phone? Don't you feel that comfort when they get on the phone? Like, not saying you're supposed to put your guard down and not be professional, but don't you feel a little bit different as if you was talking to a white person on the phone?
Of course, but even when I do that, even if I speak to someone and I still have to feel them out as to what kind of individual they are, because right. I'm not going to be like, you sound like you might be a Negro. Hey, what's up, man? No, that's not how you speak people. That's just not how we do things.
No,
especially I call.
But I, as the professional in the relationship, I let the client set the tone. So I worked in social work, so my life has been mental health for a very long time. And so understanding that I look at people and I let the person who is the client, I respect the offense. So if they are setting the tone because we are trying to help them find their change and we have to start from where they are, then I cannot be like, let me teach you about something that you're not ready to be taught about. I'm not going to push something on you that's just going to make you shut down. We're going to work from where you are and then try to work our way forward. So I'm not going to be like, oh no, but I'm going to set my own tone to say, no, I don't curse in this conversation, and I would respect that you don't curse at me because I don't like that.
And that's wisdom. That's wisdom.
And my clients, 99% of the time, respect that and accept that and thank me for it, because once I set that tone for them, they know that this is a space where they can grow and they can say, okay.
So can I ask you this? So in somewhat, can you say people, when they get on a professional level in life, right? So if you're taking a call for some important business about your car, rent, whatever the case may be, could you possibly say that people feel comfort when it has some type of professionalism that goes with it, rather than their natural daily things, like talking to a person y'all using slang all day? When you talk to that person on the phone, do you feel like people allows it because they just love the comfort that brings to them?
So there are 6 rules of 6 principles of persuasion. So how to make someone to agree with you. And one of the main things is consistency, authority, and liking. So like if I show consistency, this is the tone that I'm setting, and this is where we're working from. That shows them my authority. If I'm and my that I am at this point, and this is where we're working towards. I'm showing my consistency by saying these are the rules of how I function, and I will not go outside of those rules for anyone. I try to be likable. So like if it's someone from my culture or from my neighborhood, yes, I can code switch with and we can go into patois. My accent can come straight out when I'm speaking to them, but I also can come back to where I'm at here. Like that's just me trying to meet them at where they are, and being perfectly honest, when I speak to Black families and deal with Black clients, there's a whole nother conversation in that, because I try to give them hookups and like say, so if you do this, you'll get in a lot less trouble, because they're looking for you. So like, don't do this, do this. I'm trying to help you out, sis. Like, and we'll say things like that. And sometimes sis will come out of my conversation when I'm trying to show my likability and show my what is the word when you are similar to someone else, but like just showing that you come from
you
the
mirror
same
a person so that they feel comfortable.
Yes. So in mirroring people and in understanding and trying to give them that understanding and give them that safe space, I will speak to them as they want to be spoken to, but I will also ask that they respect my limits, that I don't curse in a professional space. I'm not gonna call you an N-word in a conversation. That's just not gonna be the situation. But if we're on the street, I sat there and I said, if I'm on the street and you come at me, I need you to remember that I'm from the same neighborhood as you, and I got the same hands as you, and I'll do what I gotta do. But I got
the issue that I'm having is when I don't pull out my best dishes when I have guests. Me and my children eat on my best dishes every single day of the week. That's what we do, because I'm not going to treat my family better than treat a stranger better than I treat my family. But a lot of times when we say it's culture and things, we treat other people like she was saying, or he was saying, with our professional voice. We want to be professional and do things for them. But when I come to their family, we don't show them always the same respect. And we say it's culture or it's this. Don't get me wrong. My family is my family. I do things for them that I'm not going to do for anybody else. But I'm not going to show somebody more respect than I'm showing my family. So I'm not going to go out there and call you a derogatory name and say that it's not derogatory when it is. Like I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to call my daughter a B and say, but I love you. It's love.
With our family as if it is on the phone. If I'm talking to a white person, I change the tone of my voice. Why can't my tone of voice be the same if I'm talking to my brother, or you know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. Why do we have to change up for professionalism?
Why do we change? That's right.
Why can't it be the same? Why do I have to change on the phone?
So
that's right.
No.
So I guess this is my perspective. I see comfort in the levels of speaking. So my professional tone is because of the lack of comfort. I am in a professional position where my job is to help you. It's not my job to be comfortable. It's my job to make you comfortable. If I'm with my family, I can speak as comfortably as I feel like. I could be loud, I can be cursing, when I'm with my friends, I can speak how I want to, because that is where I am in my comfort zone, where I will not be judged, I will not be fired, my money will not be affected by how I spoke to anybody, because as I said earlier, you respect the person who's offended first. So if I
think that's a money issue, because you got to act a certain way to make your money. No, you got to act a certain way to make your money. I work for myself. I'm going to be me all the time. That's it.
And that's fine, and that works for you, and that can work for you. But we live in a community. Humans are social creatures. We are evolved to be social creatures. We are evolved to adapt and to work together to build greater communities.
But I don't have to change who I am to do that. I shouldn't have
You
to
don't
change who
have
I am to
to.
do
And
that.
also, I
Nobody's
mean,
saying that you have to, but you have to
technically,
respect that
you
other people don't do it as well. You can respect that there are people who are individualistic, and you can respect that there are people who are community based, and you can
yeah,
respect
I
that
can agree with
everybody
you
has.
on how you are because I be like that. If I was working there where you work, I would be the same way. I'm not knocking you for that. All I'm saying is overall, why do us as people have to be like that? I'm not knocking you
I just,
personally.
I just no, I'm just saying that I think that if we come from a space where we can feel each other out, like I don't want to assume that what my norm is your norm, and that's what I say when I have a professional tone is that this is what is quote unquote the way of
Normal to you.
speaking in this world, and
Yes.
I can't assume that my norm for the way I speak in this world is your norm for the way I speak to this norm. But I can say that business vernacular has this conversation. This is how they speak in a business tone. I teach English at business level, and so when I teach English at business level, that's a different level of communication because they learn
Can I
English
jump
at
in
business.
here a little bit?
Let her
So
finish talking, please.
when I speak to the people, so that is its own language. Business language is its own, is considered its own version of English. And like, so when I'm speaking to business English and I'm speaking to African American vernacular, as I'm speaking to Jamaican patois, those are three different versions. Those are three different editions of English Creole. That's more speaking to your ability to speak on multiple languages, because those are multiple languages. You are speaking different versions of English Creole. You are speaking Jamaican patois. You are speaking African American vernacular English, or you're speaking American Standard English. Even the newscasters. You think the newscasters sound like that? Do you guys remember the video of the one black guy who sounded like this? Yes, God. And today he said only like, oh my God, a fly went in my mouth, and he went straight hood in like 3.2 seconds. That's literally him speaking in the language of what is considered business English, and the language of him speaking of what his cultural English is. Those are two different
Can
languages.
y'all hear me now?
Could you say, Leah, could you say if you had the choice to change that, would you, if you had the choice to not have to put certain ways of talking in different categories, if you had the power to change that, would you?
No, because I like the fact that this is something that's individual and unique to a community. I think it's beautiful that every culture has its own way of speaking to each other, that has their own dialogue, has their own language. And I think that I should not have to force myself or force anyone to speak my language, or I should be forced to speak their language. But I like the idea of being a polyglot and being able to move between different cultures and being able to move between different languages. I think that's an asset.
That's a positive way of looking at it. But some people look at it like, man, it sucks. I gotta talk like this. You
It,
know what I'm saying?
and I try to understand that, but I try to look at the silver lining of it all, because it is, if we look at the building of language, is that every cultural separation of languages is how language is built. Portuguese is what was originally a bastardization of Spanish. Spanish is a bastardization of Italian, and Italian is a bastardization of Latin. Those are all different creoles of Latin, if you want to be specific about it, because that's how those languages were built and how those languages were created. So yes, we all have different ways of speaking, and we all have different vernaculars and different conversations that happen within different communities because of what the language is within that community. And I think we should respect that those are different languages.
Okay, what kind of music you like?
I listen to literally everything. I listen to Japanese metal, Irish, Tear is the name of the band. I don't remember what kind. I listen to Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. I listen to Barb Marley, and I have no particular individual style of music. I think if the music is good and the beat is popping, I will listen the shit out of it, and I will just learn the words somehow. I'll be like, Zakenko no senshi no yomi. I will sing it in any language that it needs to be said, but I'm not gonna sit there and be like, the words are in English. Let me change your language into my language. No, that's not how, because the song won't be the same if you try to say it in your version of the language. I don't remember if you guys remember Avril Lavigne. She did Girlfriend. Hey, you, I should be your girlfriend. She made that song a while ago. She did that in multiple languages. And I learned it in both English and Japanese. And it does not sound the same across languages, but it was interesting to see what you were willing to do in order to change the tone and how it can be seen in different languages. I listen to Disney music in different languages. I love listening to Disney music in different languages because it's always interesting to see how they would translate what I'm saying and how the words are different because they don't have words for what I'm saying. So I just see all music, I see all languages as something beautiful to enjoy and to respect. And so from English to Japanese to African American vernacular English, I think they're all languages that should be respected.
We're gonna I just wanted to give anybody a last chance to say something if they had something to say, but we're gonna probably go on and end it. We went over. So is there anything anybody else has to say before we end this?
Thank you for the discussion. I enjoy each and every one of you's points of views. I really, really did. It's a great discussion.
Yes, thank you again.
Really enjoyed this. I did enjoy, like Essie, you're right in the fact that like it needs to individually, as a person, yes, individually we should stop saying it. As a whole, but as individual, I'm probably not going to say it half as much thanks to this conversation.
Yes, and I enjoyed it because I enjoyed all the iPods because I love to listen to it and hear everything about what's going on.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm sorry, guys, that Carl's not going to be able to say his last words. I had to put him in the waiting room because just could not. But I enjoyed all of you. And Carl, if you can hear me, I enjoyed you. You guys have a good night. Remember to follow my link tree. Please hit that subscribe button on the YouTube. Thank you for tuning in to my viewers to Talk with Lady Zenias. Also, I want to let you guys know that my co-host Charmaine is on vacation, but she will be back soon. Peace, you guys. Love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.